This is SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. You're listening to the Morning Brief on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Come, let us spend the next 3 hours together informing and engaging each other and sharpening each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. Here's what's coming up on the show. We'll be focusing quite a bit on the budget, right? Because we are a mere 24 hours or so from the voting. That's where the rubber hits the road around this budget, whether or not it will pass the muster of Parliament and get a majority vote. So expect a flurry of political and legislative activity between today and tomorrow as parties in the National Governing Coalition step up their engagements aimed at breaking the impasse over the 2025-2026 national budget. All indications are that there have been extensive engagements between the main political parties in the Government of National Unity to try and get the budget passed. So media briefings expected between the ANC as well as the DA this morning. But we've also heard from the IFP saying that after careful consideration, it is not in the interests of South Africa to be stymied by this lack of consensus around the budget. So while they are not happy, they will be voting in favor of passing the budget with the IFP. But we'll get a clearer sense of where things stand with those engagements between the main parties, the ANC and the DA, when they hold their media briefings later on this morning. But in parallel to that, Parliament's Standing Committee and the Select Committee on Finance, so the two committees on finance, will again hold a meeting today to consider and adopt their reports on one of the elements of the budget, that is the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. That's the one that needs to be voted on at least by tomorrow. So analysis suggests that how this meeting goes will be a good indicator of how voting on the fiscal framework and revenue proposals will likely go when it is tabled for decision in the National Assembly tomorrow. So I'll be joined by Joe Maswanganyi, the Select Committee Chairperson, Select Committee on Finance Chairperson. That conversation coming up at the top of 7 with Joe Maswanganyi, who is the Chairperson of the Select Committee on Finance. Then another story that we're looking at this morning, the African Transformation Movement, its president, Vuyo Zungula, is pushing for a private member's bill that he says will expose non-governmental organizations funded by foreign entities that may be driving agendas that are intended to destabilize the country. The proposed legislation would seek to enhance transparency, he tells us, in NGO funding and curb foreign interference in the nation's political and developmental affairs. The ATM's initiative is a response to growing concerns that certain foreign-backed NGOs are undermining national sovereignty and economic progress. So the ATM's president, Vuyo Zungula, will join me again in the second hour of the show, just at the top of 7 as well, in that half hour between 7 and 7:30. But I want to hear from you. What do you make of this proposal that there should be legislation introduced that would scrutinize the funding of NGOs? Put that into the context of the importance of civil society in South Africa historically, before the dawn of democracy, but also in the age of democracy, the various pieces of work that NGOs engage in, in various spaces, really, political, the areas of human rights and civil rights, as well as the work that they do in, assisting with developmental programs in this country. Just how much scrutiny should they be subjected to in terms of where they obtain their funding from? Is it in our interest to scrutinize further and perhaps even put certain conditions around foreign funding of non-governmental organizations? I'm just wondering, to what extent would you like to see the kind of bill that the ATM is proposing around foreign funding of some NGOs? You can give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. And then let me tell you this story as well very quickly. At about 8:20 in the third hour of the show, I'll be joined by Professor Abaine Ambushe, who is a researcher at the University of Johannesburg. And that conversation will be about a new study by the University of Johannesburg that has revealed alarming levels of cancer-causing chemicals in Gauteng's Klip River, which is a crucial water source for local communities, livestock and ecosystems. That's really concerning. That conversation will be coming at about 8:20. The team is at full strength once again on this Tuesday morning, and Musa with your news updates at the top and the bottom of every hour. Rob Ben with your traffic updates every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Dowling Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered, as well as Sipho Mantula with your Africa update. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Algerian giants, the People's Club, plan to impress their home fans with victory before traveling to Mzansi, while the Buccaneers want to triumph away and complete the party in Orlando in the second leg. This is the first leg quarter-final clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the incredible action of African football. MC Alger battles it out with Orlando Pirates on Tuesday, 1 April at 9 p.m. live on SABC 1, SABC radio stations and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
The reason you're hearing that applause is one of our producers, Melissa Puta, is in studio and will be for the coming days. In fact, we'll come in around this time to give you a sense of what we're calling the Morning Brief in brief. Good morning, Melissa.
Morning, Thulasizwe.
How are you feeling this morning? We welcomed you with applause, yeah?
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
So just a sense, before we get into it, of what we're trying to do. You will come in to give updates. Just tell us what you will do exactly.
Okay, so basically we're doing stories that aren't incorporated in our content for the day, and then some of the stories will throw forward, to some of the interesting stories that we'll be talking about on a particular day. So that's basically what we're doing, one or two stories that are interesting, but we just aren't following, for whatever reason, or we'll follow at a later stage.
Yeah, listen, we can only cover so much in 3 hours.
Exactly.
So to complete the picture, that's what we're trying to do. So speaking of which then, tell me about South African households bracing ourselves for, it's that time of the year, the Eskom tariffs.
Unfortunately, it's that time of the year when the electricity costs are expected to increase by 12.74% today.
Yeah.
So even though the municipal tariff hikes won't come into effect until July, eventually it's inevitable that we're going to start to feel the pinch in our pockets,
Yeah.
So it is just one of those things that, the change of the economy is bringing to the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other story we've been watching quite a bit is this story around the rape of a child in Matatiele.
Yes.
Tell me about that school. They're going to court, are they?
Yes, so the Bergview College is headed to court because they were deregistered. The MEC in the province has said that they just don't feel like the school is safe. And if you're not safe for the students, which is what you're supposed to be as a school, then why are you, being known as a school at all? So the chairperson of the school's board, DC Van Zyl, he claims that the provincial education MEC Fundi Gade lacked the legal authority to deregister the institution in the first place. So they headed to the High Court to go and challenge the deregistration.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting to watch because I think issues of administrative justice come into that and that whole context.
Yes.
An administrative decision being taken by the MEC, possibly being taken for review.
Yes.
So tell me what's trending on social media.
So on social media is the hashtag that we all know. We cannot name her, but it's about the 7-year-old girl that was allegedly violated at the school. So there's been about over 70K signatures now that have been signed on the petition that's been doing the rounds on social media, which is great. It's amazing to see South Africa really together, you know, for a cause and helping this girl and her family get justice, you know, because I mean, this happened back in October, which is hard to believe. But also, in addition to that, you will be in conversation at 6:45 with Barry Bateman, who's the spokesperson from AfriForum's private prosecution unit, to clarify their stance, because they've also been trending with hashtag AfriForum about their stance in this whole situation. Because why are they associating themselves with the principal? But I guess we'll find out from Barry Bateman at 6:45.
Melissa Puta there. So get used to that. She will be coming in and giving you a sense, scanning all the other issues that may not necessarily fit within the 3 hours that we have, as well as what it's looking like on social media. That story about AfriForum and their position, just a short while ago, Barry Bateman in conversation with Elvis Preslin, just explaining what their position is and the kind of advice that they are giving to the school principal implicated in that story. All right, see you later, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
At 18 minutes past 6, let's give you a sense of how your weather is looking on this Tuesday. There's two warnings, actually. One is a yellow level 2 warning. It says severe thunderstorms resulting in damaging winds, excessive lightning, hail, and heavy downpours, leading to localized flooding and damage to property and infrastructure. Those conditions are expected over the northeastern and western parts of KwaZulu-Natal, central and western parts of the northwest, as well as the central and eastern parts of the Free State. The second is a yellow level 1 warning. It says severe thunderstorms resulting in localized flooding, damage to settlements, property, vehicles, and infrastructure. Those conditions expected in places over the northern parts of the Eastern Cape. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 25. Johannesburg, partly cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 16 to 24. Mbombela will see morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 19 to 28. Polokwane will be partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers, 17 to 27. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 17 to 26. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 15 to 22. Kimberley, partly cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 16 to 24. Uppington will be partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 30. Cape Town will be partly cloudy, becoming fine from the evening with a minimum of 17 and a maximum of 23. George, cloudy with a chance of light morning rain with a minimum of 17 and a maximum of 21. Gqeberha will be cloudy with a chance of morning rain, 18 to 21. East London will be partly cloudy with a chance of light rain from the afternoon, 20 to 23. Durban will be partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 22 to 29. Richards Bay will be partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 23 to 33. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will see morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 17 to 27.
Get unbeatable football odds with SuperSport Bet. From derbies to title deciders, our Super Boosts give you boosted odds you won't find anywhere else. Switch today and get 100% deposit match up to 5,000 Rand. SuperSport Bet is licensed by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. Bookmaker license 10191097. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help 076 675 0710.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
It's coming up to 23 minutes after 6. The U.S. President Donald Trump is intensifying diplomatic efforts with Russia and Ukraine, pushing to fulfill what was his campaign promise of ending the war in Ukraine. Despite initial optimism, negotiations have faced major setbacks, with Russia setting conditions that complicate progress. Tensions are rising as diplomatic exchanges continue, frustrating Ukraine and fueling concerns over the delays. The White House says it remains committed to brokering a resolution, but challenges persist on the path to peace. I'm joined now by Professor Abel Esterhazy, who is a member of the Department of Strategic Studies in the Faculty of Military Science at Stellenbosch University. Prof, good morning and thank you for your time. So there's been a flurry of meetings, many of them taking place in Saudi Arabia. There have been meetings in Moscow and Paris at the highest levels, but it would seem that we're not getting to a substantial breakthrough. Why do you believe that is?
Yeah, I think one has to consider a number of realities here. The first is that I think Trump was, from the beginning, somewhat naive. I think one has to register that point. Secondly, I think he approached Russia in a transactional way. And let's be honest, Putin is experienced at the international level. He's a good diplomat. He's been around for quite a while. I don't think the transactional approach by Trump is really working with Trump. I think that's the second point I want to make. And then, of course, he treated Zelensky as a kid, and he ignored Europe. And if you consider that realities, I think we're back at the point that I've made about Trump being a little bit naive. And then, of course, from a Russian perspective, I think with the U.S. ending their help, their assistance to Ukraine, Russia is now deliberately postponing any form of a peace deal to try and make as much progress at an operational level, at a battlefield level, as is possible, because Trump have actually created the perfect conditions for them to achieve a strategic effect on the battlefield. And so I think from the beginning, Trump has actually dealt with this whole debacle in a way that didn't sort of set them up for success.
So, I mean, last week there was a bit of optimism, I thought, when Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's envoy in that particular conflict, had met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and it sounded to me like they were talking concrete actions that were about de-escalation. They were even talking about, the front line is actually some 2,000 kilometers or so, and they needed to make sure that there are unique conditions at every point of contact between the two sides along that front line, and that's where the conversation was. But to go from that to now be talking about conditions that are far removed from the battlefield, it suggests to me that we may actually be regressing here.
Yeah, I think so. But this brings me back to the point where I think Trump is a very shrewd negotiator. He is very good at the international level. He's been around. He's not going to be a walkover. He's not going to be bullied. into a settlement that does not align with his view of what ought to be achieved. And he is now, in my opinion, coming to the table as a professional negotiator, as somebody who knows how to negotiate, and is not falling for the American transactional approach. I think this is what we are witnessing now. Putin is good. Let's be honest about this. He's good in his negotiations. He's a professional in this regard. He knows how to play international politics, and this is what they are doing now. This is what we are witnessing now. I don't think we're going to see an outcome very soon. And I think the Americans have certainly been wrong in their approach by sort of negotiate and try to negotiate and find a deal on the one hand with Zelensky and the Ukraine, and then turn around and try and make a deal with Russia on the other hand, without bringing the two warring parties to the table and let them actually discuss the future of Ukraine. I think the U.S., their approach and the way they have done and deal with the negotiations have also been wrong. And this is, I think, going to continue for quite some time.
All right, Prof, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Professor Abel Esterhazy, who is a member of the Department of Strategic Studies in the Faculty of Military Science at Stellenbosch University.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, Zai, good morning to you. So there was a thriller then between Amajimbos and the Pharaohs.
Oh, what a comeback.
Yeah?
Those first 3 goals, if you blinked, you missed it. I wonder if they're sending a message out to other teams in the PSL. Look and learn from us youngsters. So yeah, last night, oh my goodness, Amajimbos, they definitely deserved some free ice cream. It was an absolute thriller. And it was 4-3, so 7 goals were scored. It was South Africa's victory over Egypt, a Group B encounter at Stade Labi Zawili in Casablanca. A roller coaster contest packed with drama, penalties, a red card. It was Emile Witboy's 71st minute strike that ultimately sealed the win for Amajimbos, who now sit top of the group alongside Burkina Faso with 3 points. Burkina Faso earlier came from behind to beat Cameroon 2-1. And the Amajimbos, they now turn their focus with a clash with Cameroon on Thursday. Egypt will seek redemption against Burkina Faso. Another match, Morocco made a dream start to their CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations with a resounding 5-0 victory over Uganda. That was the tournament's opening match in Mohammedia. The emphatic results puts Morocco top of Group A, providing an early boost to their hopes of lifting the continental title. Now, South Africa's Orlando Pirates are back on the big stage tonight. They face Algerian heavyweights MC Alger in the first leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinal. The Buccaneers top their group unbeaten and are hoping to carry that momentum into Algiers. Coach Jose Rivero is expected to stick with the winning formula that saw Pirates beat Mamelodi Sundowns with Sipho Chaina in goal and Evidence Mahopa leading the line. The last time Pirates reached this stage, they went all the way to the final, and that was back in 2013. Elsewhere, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says winger Bukayo Saka is fit again after missing 3 months with injury. The England international had surgery on a hamstring problem suffered in Arsenal's Premier League win over Crystal Palace on the 21st of December. Rugby, Edinburgh are sweating on the availability of their winger Duhan van der Merwe for Friday's EPCR Challenge Cup as head coach Sean Everett prepares for a dangerous Lions outfit. The SA-born Scotland flyer limped off in the opening minutes of last week's 38-5 victory against the Dragons, wearing a protective boot after leaving the field. And finally, boxing, Kevin Lerena has vowed to be an explosive, well-oiled machine when he bids to become the first South African in history to successfully defend a WBC world title. That's on the 1st of May in Pretoria. He will be the first South African fighter to defend the WBC title at home, but the second to fight for one in the country after, well, there was a successful challenge in 2000. We'll find out more sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zaikan.
All right, let's check in with Ann Musa now with the latest news headline. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola says those who want the government to change its foreign policy must follow the proper channels. Speaking during the launch of the Aziz Pahad dialogue at the Department of International Relations in Pretoria, Lamola says the Government of National Unity Agreement is clear on the issue. The ANC and the DA are yet to reach an agreement on the tabled budget. This is according to the DA spokesperson Karabo Khachau. She says constructive conversations between the parties are underway, and the Israeli military has given its biggest evacuation order for southern Gaza since relaunching its offensive earlier this month. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg traffic looking fairly normal. That is delays coming in from both sides. You've got queues already from sort of Gold Reef City through Parktown on the Mike 1 North. That is the first highway to jam on a regular basis in the mornings. And the N1 reasonably slow today from Brockfontein interchange all the way down through towards about just after Olifantsfontein Road. Earlier incident coming out of Pietermaritzburg at Market Road on the N3 towards Durban. That scene has been cleared and all lanes open there. Cape Town, a fatal crash involving a pedestrian. It's on the N2 outbound just before the Jakes Kervell Drive exit, so it's in front of Langer, so it will hold you up on your way to the airport, so just factor in already some extra time to get through, and possibly coming inbound with the onlooking factor. That N2 from the airport moving through towards the scene at Langer is likely to be slow as well, slower than normal. Marine Drive, queuing down to Woodbridge Island on your way through Milnerton, and heavy traffic on Symphony Way, top of Delft this morning. Symphony Way between Silver Sands Road and the Stellenbosch Arterial, quite heavy backlogs in and out of the Delft area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
How far down the line do you think you need to go to achieve that? Because, I mean, the key part here is there's two words, foreigners, but before that the prefix illegal. So we are talking about undocumented as opposed to documented foreigners, right?
Absolutely. But remember, we also want to emphasize the fact that even with the legal ones, we know that there's been a lot of corruption that goes with identity fraud at Home Affairs. So that we're not isolating as well. So we term those documented but fraudulently documented illegal immigrants as illegal immigrants. So all of that for us is a struggle, and we feel like the beginning of it is by securing our borders, first of all, and ensuring that the ones that are here are deported.
Jacinta Nkobese Zuma, who's one of the organizers of the March in March.
You're listening to the National Pulse, the business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela for the first update of the morning. Ndauling, good morning. Tell me about Renault and Nissan. You're saying they are adjusting the terms of their partnership. The key word there, key phrase, they are loosening ties, are they?
That's right, Thulas. And this comes as Nissan is, of course, on the road to recovery. And I guess really wanting to focus more on itself and its turnaround strategy. The two automakers have agreed to make adjustments to their long-standing partnership, reducing their cross-shareholdings from 15% to 10%. This change comes as Ivan Espinosa prepares to take the helm as Nissan CEO, facing pressure to boost the company's competitiveness and just get that balance sheet in order. As part of the revised agreement, Nissan will be released from its commitment to invest 600 million euros in Renault's electric vehicle unit, Ampere. Additionally, Renault intends to acquire Nissan's majority stake in their Indian joint venture, Renault-Nissan Automotive India, with completion expected by the end of the first half of the year. Renault CEO Luca De Meo emphasized the company's interest in Nissan's turnaround, stating that a strong Nissan is important for the alliance's success. That despite the changes, Renault affirmed its forecast of generating at least 2 billion euros in free cash flow this year, with an expected impact of only about 200 million euros from acquiring Nissan's stake in the Indian JV.
So the other reality in the automotive sector is the reality of Donald Trump's tariffs up to 25%. Tell me about Hyundai and what they are forecasting relating to the price affordability of their cars in light of these tariffs.
So the South Korean car maker is reevaluating its pricing strategy in the US due to those upcoming 25% tariffs on imported vehicles and parts, of course, that announced by President Donald Trump. The company's CEO of the US operations, as well as Genesis Motor North America, Randy Parker, warned dealers that current vehicle prices may change for units wholesaled after the 2nd of April. Analysts in the meantime have warned of price hikes if the tariffs remain in place, affecting consumers who are already, paying hefty prices for cars. Now, according to Cox Automotive, the 25% tariffs may add $3,000 to the cost of US-made vehicles and $6,000 to vehicles made in Canada and Mexico. Now, Hyundai's reliance on US investments and lower dependence on imports from Mexico and Canada may help mitigate the effects. The company recently announced a $21 billion investment in the US just before Trump's auto tariff comments as well.
Lastly, Dowling, give us a sense of the market activity for this hour.
Yeah. So U.S. markets closing mixed in yesterday's session. Some indices managed to stage a recovery and close higher. Volatility, however, remains the name of the game as traders nervously looked ahead to President Donald Trump's tariff plans. With that, the Nasdaq, the only index in the red, while the S&P 500 and Dow Jones closed in the green. That rebound not filtering through to the JSE, with local markets in negative territory. The all share down over 1%, fueled by losses in the industrial 25, down 1.1%. Meanwhile, in currency markets, the rand making some ground back under the 1830 mark. This from about 1843 yesterday morning. Then over in Asia, markets in recovery mode as well, and starting the second quarter in the green. Traders, however, still concerned about President Trump's trade policies, with that deadline right around the corner.
All right, that's our Dowling Lechela. She's always right on the money. Look out for more of her insights. She'll be coming back with another report for you just after 7:30 here on The Morning Brief.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Get tested this April at Specsavers, and we'll give you a free optical frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand. That's right, get a free frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye examination at Specsavers. Book online at specsavers.co.za or visit your nearest store nationwide. Early detection is key. Get tested today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning at a different time. Talk to me about, I like this expression, panel of the wise. Tell me about the panel of the wise and what they are being deployed to do in relation to South Sudan.
Refreshing morning to us in Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, to us a new radio season as we enter the Freedom Month across the continent. Moving to Juba, to us, we've seen the new AU chairperson coming from Djibouti, the AU chairperson deploying the AU panel of the wise. It's all about mediation to us, and particularly with former heads of states who will compromise, who will constitute this team of the panel of the wise. He has already spoken with the President Salva Kiir as well as the Vice President Riek Machar. So their mission starts tomorrow to us, and the meeting has been scheduled for the 3rd of April, and probably the mission to end on the 6th. This panel has worked before to us, but in some instances we see how the AU under the leadership of Yusuf is rising to the occasion now of pushing what we call African peace diplomacy. Probably after the South Sudan, you might look even in the North Sudan.
And Sipho, tell me about what's happening in Uganda. Here's a voice we've not heard from in quite a while, Bobi Wine. What is Bobi Wine saying about rewarding politicians and MPs even before they do any work?
This was before the budget speech yesterday in Kampala before the parliament. Now they have what they say in their government or in their parliament to us alternative budget that comes from opposition. Now Bobi Wine and known also as Robert. He was saying that he's criticizing the government because there are issues of corruption scandals, government failures, but he's shocked that we have members who have been rewarded before they can do the work. He has also highlighted the iron sheets that were shared by members of parliament, which were meant for the poorest of the poor in Uganda. So Bobi Wine coming very closely to us against the government of President Museveni on the issues of economic landscape, issues of corruption, but also rewarding of sleeping members of parliament in Kampala.
And then closer to home, tell me about the protests and demonstrations that were planned and scheduled for yesterday in Zimbabwe. How did that go?
It says that relatively there were some places that were shut down, some businesses and schools, and people had a fear of going to this unrest. Despite that, we know that Blessed Geza, he has called for this in support of Constantino Chiwenga and accusing President Dambuzo Mnangagwa for corruption. So relatively, there were few journalists who were arrested, released at a later stage. So one can say that it was not a big success because people stayed away from home rather than being in the street. But there were some rumors that police were still taking people away from the street, who were still saying that they don't want 2030 project. The 2030 project is what Mnangagwa wants to extend his term for being the third, going for the third term as the president of Zimbabwe since the removal of Uncle Bob.
And then tell me about what's happening in Lesotho. The electricity supplier there in a bit of a spot of bother?
Remember the acting Minister of Energy, the Muleko, had to come out clear that they have run out of cash. They are relying on South Africa in terms of electricity. They rely on Mozambique EDM. South Africa is Eskom. But now he says that they have run out of money due to the issues of corruption, financial mismanagement, and also low energy tariffs that are in Lesotho. Now, if the kingdom is struggling from electricity to us, but they have no water, you ask yourself, what then is the role of the hydropower stations, which they are also saying that, it's only giving them 72 megawatts compared to what they would have expected. But this comes from the acting Minister of Energy, lamenting that they don't have money, and that might also compromise consumers as well as the economy of the kingdom of Lesotho.
All right, finally, Sipho, take us to your historical archive. You're taking us to the 1st of April 2016. What happened of significance on this day?
Looking at our 31 years of freedom and democracy, we cannot forget this former PNC president and elder who was from Komani, from Eastern Cape, Elder Clarence Mlami Makwetu, who passed away at the age of 88. That was 9 years ago on this day. We know that the late Mutsukupeko also said that Makwetu was this towering height. He will call him Ufafa, the tall one. Uzikali, that was his clan name, and that we shall remember him for his frankness, bravery in matters of national importance, affecting the land of the dispossessed people of Azania. So as you remember, Clarence Makwetu to us on this Freedom Month, these are the leaders that stood the test from 1959 until 2016. Asante sana Tulas as facilitated in the conversation, SFM observing the Freedom Month.
Great stuff. Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mandula there with your Africa update, just giving you a sampling and just a flavor of some of the stories around the continent and its diaspora.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag The Morning Brief.
14 minutes to 7 on SAFM. Let's turn our attention to this story now. Expect a flurry of political and legislative activity between today and tomorrow as parties in the National Governing Coalition step up engagements aimed at breaking the impasse over the 2025-2026 national budget. This as Parliament's Standing and Select Committees on Finance will again hold a meeting today to consider and adopt their report on one of the elements of the budget, that is the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. analysis suggests that how this meeting goes will be a good indicator of how voting on the fiscal framework and revenue proposals will likely go when the budget is tabled for decision in the National Assembly tomorrow. I'm joined now by Mdumiseni Ntuli, who is the ANC Chief Whip in Parliament. Good morning and thank you for your time. So there's been quite a bit of engagement, and I do suspect that you actually have had some progress in as far as the political parties engaging between themselves to try and reach consensus. Am I correct in that assumption that there's been some progress that you will be able to report a bit later on today?
Well, good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to the fellow listeners of SAFM. Yes, indeed, I can assure you and the listeners that a great deal of work has been done by the ANC task team. You remember, Thulasizwe, that after the presentation of the budget by the Minister of Finance, the ANC decided to set up a task team in order to engage with all political parties who are represented in our national parliament. And I want to emphasize that all political parties, not just parties within the GNU. And the reason why we adopted that approach is because this is not a GNU budget. It's a budget of our country, and our country's representatives in the National Assembly are as important as those who are within the GNU. I'm very happy that we have now managed to narrow down the differences to be around how to handle the question of the VAT. All other issues that were raised by various political parties who disagreed with the budget through our own engagements, which are continuing even today, have resulted in us agreeing that the only matter and the only question we need to find a creative solution to at the moment is only the VAT. And of course, I'm saying this, all political parties except the Democratic Alliance, which, as you know, has presented a long list of demands, which we've responded to, but they continue to insist that they will not be able to support the budget unless we adhere to their own demands, which we think is a misplaced approach and is not a rational approach to the discussion.
So tell me a bit more about those demands. We understand them to include the issues around the Expropriation Act and trying to get amendments into that act that deal with particular concerns, particularly around the issue of the instances where compensation would be calculated to be nil in terms of that law, the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act and the likes. Have you, as the ANC, yielded any ground or any concessions on those demands?
No, Thulasizwe, we can't take a decision as Parliament and have President signing an act into the law, and that act be brought in through a backdoor for amendment in order to support the budget. We can't agree to that. It's unprincipled. We can't. That is including the Expropriation Act as well as the NHI Act. There's no way that we're going to walk back on those commitments because they are not about the ANC. They are about the transformation of our country, which we're all committed to. The other demand that the GA has made, which I'm saying is also not part of what we think should be, we can concede to, is that certain powers must be delegated to the Deputy Minister of Finance to play a much more prominent role, more than his counterpart who's a deputy coming from the ANC. We don't think that is rational as well. It's a demand that, the minister has a responsibility to decide delegation, and after he has done so, it requires the authority of the president. You can't bring that to negotiate a budget. The other one, for instance, is that do away with NYDA. The other one is to say, don't put money in our defense force, because in any case, there is a decision that our troops must withdraw from DRC, which we accept. But the fact of the matter is that all of us, when we debated the situation of our participation in continental missions, we agreed that the defense force is not properly equipped. You can't turn around today and say, no, don't equip them, take that money away and invest it somewhere. So that is why I'm saying the demands that are put in place by the Democratic Alliance, unlike all other political, and I'm saying all other political parties, are very difficult.
So what's your message then as Chief Whip ahead of the meeting of the joint of the two committees, standing and select committees on finance today, as well as the voting? Is your message that they should vote and align with all political parties that are like-minded, even if that would lead to the exclusion of the DA, with the attendant consequences that they would possibly reconsider their participation in the GNU?
Let me start by saying the GNU is not the DA. The GNU is made up of non-political parties. Any of those parties can decide whatever they want to do tomorrow or today. That does not affect the standing of the GNU. Secondly, I'm very confident that the ANC members who are sitting in that portfolio committee, in terms of what we have worked out with other political parties, will present a convincing and cogent argument which will result to the majority of the portfolio committee adopting the fiscal framework for deferment to be finalized by the National Assembly tomorrow. All I can give as an assurance to the people of South Africa is that the only major question we're grappling with now is how to deal with the VAT question. And the ANC is listening to all other parties, and we are crafting a solution to that which will be presented in the portfolio committee later this morning.
All right, thank you for that. That's Mdumiseni Ntuli. He's the ANC Chief Whip in Parliament. So do look out for that meeting that's coming up a bit later on that Mdumiseni is referring to. I think we'll glean quite a bit of what the lay of the land is as far as this budget is concerned, and who is aligning with it and who is aligning away from it.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Oh, this one's going to have you badly backed up. No traffic lights again this morning. Winnie Mandela at the N1 highway, coming out of four ways, already badly backed up through Monte Casino, back towards Vickop, and then the N1 north and south. Off-ramps already getting very busy as well. Some delays getting up on the N3 through Marlborough Drive. Some pressure there, just moving up from Alex through Limbo Park on your way slowly into Buccleuch interchange. Mike 1's heavy this Tuesday with queues from Ormonde right through to Oxford Road in Parktown. M2 to get in back as far as Joe Slovo Drive, going all the way to the Crown interchange. Busy coming out of Pretoria on the N1 this morning. Brockfontein down to New Road, pretty solid. And delays coming out of Shoshingube on what we refer to as the mighty Mabopani Highway. Such a busy road with a breakdown around XX. So some very heavy traffic leaving Shosh this morning. Durban side, a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction. So early queues up into Wards 4 level. Backlogs at this stage from around the cement factory area. Cape Town, a fatal crash on the M2 outbound in front of Langa before the N7. If you're heading out to the airport, expect some delays there. A collision at the junction of Stellenbosch Arterial and Symphony Way. There's a lot of traffic backlogging in that Delft area this morning. And roadworks confirming the N7 still down to a single lane through Voortrekker onto the railway bridge. Traffic heavy with the queues already back to Franz Conradi Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard, to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Specsavers cares about your vision. Regular eye examinations can help detect several underlying health problems. Get tested today. Specsavers.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
5 minutes to 7 on the morning brief. The eThekwini Metropolitan Municipality's proposal for a 2.8 million rand city rebranding project aimed at improving service delivery has sparked widespread discontent among some residents. While the municipality frames the rebranding as a necessary step in its brand transformation journey, critics argue that the funds should be used for more pressing issues such as infrastructure repairs and addressing the city's ongoing service delivery crises. I'm joined now by Mandla Ntsele, who is head of communications at the eThekwini Metro. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Why does the brand of eThekwini need a refresh and a rejig at this point?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and thank you so much for having us on the Morning Brief show. Well, let me start by acknowledging and noting the differing viewpoints on the city's rebranding project. As the municipality, we completely understand the frustration regarding the service delivery issues, particularly when it comes to ongoing intermittent water supply in some areas of the city. But the good news is that the city, in partnership with the Department of Water Affairs, is implementing several major projects to address these water disruption issues in eThekwini. As part of our commitment to prioritize service delivery, the city last week, Thulasizwe, announced 10 billion budget, which is aimed at implementing and rebuilding the water electricity infrastructure programs. So this is one of the demonstrations for the city that it does prioritize service delivery issues. And the good thing is that we are prioritizing service delivery. But I want to highlight the position of the city insofar as rebranding is concerned. Our view is that there is a need to balance between attending service delivery issues as well as investing on our long-term rebuilding project. The marketing of the city is part of our rebuilding project, which is aimed at attracting investment. As we know that cities got responsibilities to create their local economy so that the economy can thrive. With that come the marketing of the city so that it can be marketable in terms of tourism space, in terms of the investment that comes to that city. We believe that the investment for those will enable the city to be able to generate more income, which will assist the city in terms of accelerating service delivery. So in short, the two are interlinked in that when you market your city, we are able to grow your local economy. The city is able to generate income, which you plow back to invest on service delivery issues.
Are you spending 2.8 million rand on a logo?
We are spending 2.8 million on the logo, which is whose 70% of the budget is mainly part of the stakeholder engagement, whereby we want to engage as many people as possible in eThekwini, whereby we will be inviting members of the public to be part of the process. But in the main, for us, the local rebranding should not be seen in isolation.
Why do you need public participation in developing a logo that will resonate? Is that, I mean, I get public participation in legislative work and passing budgets and the likes in the city, but developing a logo?
Yes, developing a logo. Remember, Thulasizwe, our project is not only about developing a logo, but it's about creating and strengthening our brand identity in eThekwini. With that, we want to create a branding that will resonate with members of the public. So you cannot live outside the members of the public because they need to relate to the city brand that we are creating. So as part of the activities of this project will be that of engaging members of the public to contribute to rebuilding and coming up with proposals that can best describe or represent eThekwini municipality. But what is critical about the project, Thulasizwe and the listeners, is that we are doing this as part of our ongoing marketing strategy for the city to attract investment as well as create job opportunities, because we believe that that is at the core of our marketing. And the logo itself is just one of the critical pieces for a puzzle for our marketing strategy.
Do you have evidence that a logo that resonates with the public contributes to the brand positioning of the city? And I ask this because I don't even know what the logo of the city of Joburg looks like sitting where I am now. Whatever goodwill, brand goodwill is enjoyed by the city is based on the experiences that people have. I don't know what the logo of the city of Cape Town looks like to the extent that it's attractive to tourists and other people. It's purely a factor of the experiences, the service delivery and the likes that people experience when they are there. So why does the logo rank so highly just for you as the city of eThekwini?
What is important to us is that the project should not be reduced to a logo redevelopment, but what is critical and we are trying to do here is to strengthen our brand identity so that it can be more marketable in the outside market. So we're not only focusing on the logo itself, but it's a comprehensive project, like I said, which is part and parcel of our ongoing marketing strategies, which seeks to strengthen the brand itself. Okay. So the logo is just one element of our project, but there are other elements which we are seeking to strengthen the brand. Because what is key for us is a rebuilding, as part of rebuilding program, which is seeking to attract investment as well as to grow our economy in eThekwini, which will in turn whose revenue will be drawn back to service delivery, to improve service delivery. But the whole project itself is not only about the local development, but it's about other factors, which in the main is to market the city.
All right, gotcha. Thank you for that. That's Mandla Ntsele. He's head of communications at the eThekwini Municipality. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, Lamula slams DA criticism on foreign policy and no GNU agreement yet on the budget. Good morning. International Relations and Cooperations Minister Ronald Lamula says those who want government to change its foreign policy must follow proper channels. Lamula was speaking at the launch of the Aziz Pahat Dialogue at the Department of International Relations in Pretoria. Says the Government of National Unity Agreement is clear on this issue. He says there is a statement of intent that all parties ratified.
It is therefore shocking that the DA will argue that we are just implementing ANC policy in foreign affairs, when they have agreed to the above in the statement of intent, and it is what we continue to implement. The Government of National Unity does not supersede the Constitution.
The ANC and the DA are yet to reach an agreement on the tabled budget. This is according to the DA spokesperson Karabo Khachau. She says constructive conversations between the parties are underway. This follows a disagreement last Friday between the two parties on the proposed VAT increase that was announced by the Finance Minister Inoko Dongwana in his budget recently. Khachau says at the heart of the DA's demands is making sure that they are able to get the economic policy and its reforms that they wanted.
I can confirm that conversations are constructive right now. There is no deal yet. However, it seems that we are getting closer to each other. You'd know that at the heart of the DA's demands was the making sure that we are able to get the economic policy and its reforms that we wanted, that we are of the opinion will be the best interests of South Africans, that will make sure that we grow our economy, create jobs and bridge the gap between the rich and the poor in this country.
The Judicial Service Commission will today hold interviews to fill vacancies in the Labour and the Electoral Court. One candidate, Judge Lester Adams of the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg, will be interviewed for a vacancy in the Electoral Court, while 4 candidates will be interviewed to fill 3 vacancies in the Labour Court. The April leg of the JSC interviews will only sit for 1 day and is expected to begin at 9 o'clock this morning at the CSIR International Convention Centre in Pretoria in Gauteng. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, has expressed frustration over certain parts of the legislation regarding violence against children, saying it intends to favour the offender over the victim. He was reacting to the recent rape of minors on school premises. In Limpopo, police have launched a manhunt for a 58-year-old teacher who allegedly raped a 13-year-old girl at a primary school in Polokwane. Last week, the news of a 7-year-old girl who was raped at a school in the Eastern Cape also caused nationwide outrage. Cameron says perpetrators of such crimes should receive the harshest punishment possible.
If we look at crime statistics regarding violence against children, if you look at sexual offences specifically in the last quarter that we released, the ones that we know of was close to 2,000 sexual offence cases that were registered. 273 children were murdered in the last quarter of 2024. That's between October and December. I've had to speak to too many parents of children that have either been murdered or raped or both, where they were completely neglected.
Recapping the top story, International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamula says those who want government to change its foreign policy must follow proper channels. For SAFM News, I am N. Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Coming out of Shoshanguve, just confirming a crash at Block XX. So the Mopani Highway, there's some real pressure as you line up in towards that, going down towards the Rosslyn Road. No traffic lights. Winnie Mandela at the N1. No pointsman either at this hour. Very heavy coming out of four ways on Winnie Mandela towards the highway. And of course, the N1 north and south really starting to backlog heavily because of problems getting off the ramps into that congested Winnie Mandela Drive. Mike 1 from Gold Reef up towards Parktown is super heavy this morning. Durban, a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction. The N2 north, extra pressure from the cement factory. N2 running north is way busier than you might expect. And also yesterday's cash in transit heist up at Kumashi seems to still be having an impact between Malindela and Duffs Road. There is some traffic restriction as you leave Kumashi and head down towards the N2. And Cape Town N7 south heavy this morning through Goodwood into the roadworks. Northbound backing up to Bosman's Dam Road. That's fairly congested. And a crash on the N2 outbound in front of Langa. That's going to be with us a while. Make sure you've got extra time to get through that traffic for your flights from the airport. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headline. There's soccer action to look forward to this afternoon. Mamelodi Sundowns back in CAF Champions League. They host Esperance at Loftus Versfeld. It's a massive quarterfinal first leg. And we bring you cricket with South Africa's Ryan Rickleton enjoying every moment after steering the Mumbai Indians to victory over Kolkata in the IPL. Details around just before 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday, the 1st of April 2025. No joking around this morning, I've been saying. But feel free to share some of your April Fool's jokes, right? What's the best April Fool's joke you've ever heard? I wonder. Hey, I'm not big on those, but I've fallen a victim to one or two really well crafted and thought through pranks on a day such as this one. And I get the sense that it used to be an actual thing many, many years ago, but I don't know. I've just been getting that April Fool's is no longer really what it used to be. But anyway, not joking around, here's what's coming up on the show in this hour. We'll tell you about Eskom, whose power generation fleet of coal-fired power stations is among the country's worst air polluters. Now they have been granted exemption for 8 of those power stations to continue to not comply with the country's minimum emissions standards, right? So government has granted the utility this exemption on the basis of striking a balance between mounting pressure for energy security on the one hand and the environmental sustainability concerns on the other hand. In the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Dr. Dion George, that is the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. He will join me for that conversation. How exactly are we striking this balance given the concerns about air pollution in areas that host Eskom, the Eskom coal fleet? So that conversation coming up shortly. And then also within this half hour, I'll be in conversation with the ATM President, African Transformation Movement President Vuyo Zungula, who is pushing for a new private members bill in Parliament that he says will expose NGOs funded by foreign entities that may be driving agendas that are intended to destabilize the country. Vuyo Zungula will be my guest within this half hour as well. And then a bit later on in the hour, at about 10 to 8, I'll be in conversation with Michael Mabasa, that is the CEO of the National Association of Automobile Manufacturers of South Africa, NAMSA, also a transport economist. We'll be talking about these tariffs of 25% that have been imposed on vehicles and vehicle parts that are imported into the United States that were announced by that country's president, Donald Trump, last week. You will know that this raises significant concerns for the South African automotive manufacturing sector. We have a healthy automotive manufacturing sector. What are the implications for us then of those tariffs? So that conversation coming up at about 10 to 8. Through it all, I take your calls. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So straight on to it then. Eskom, whose power generation fleet of coal-fired power stations is among the country's worst polluters, has been granted exemption for 8 of its power stations to continue to not comply with the country's minimum emissions standards. Government has granted the utility this exemption on the basis of striking a balance between mounting pressure for energy security on the one hand and environmental sustainability on the other hand. I'm joined now by the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Dr. Dion George. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Why this exemption? What makes you believe that we will get Eskom to comply within the timeframes that you have granted? All right. We will go back to Dr. Dion George. We're just battling with the line and connection to Dr. Dion George there because the issue that we want to bring under the spotlight is this exemption that government has granted. It's not new, but, there was a sense that Eskom has to, at some point, bring its fleet of coal-fired power stations into compliance with their minimum emissions standards. And there was a great deal of lobbying that was meant to ensure that the extension of the exemption is not granted. I believe we have Dr. Dion George now joining us. Dr. George, good morning. So there's been a lot of lobbying around this issue, the concerns of environmental lobby groups, that Eskom has shown no inclination to bring its coal-fired power stations into compliance with our minimum emissions standards. Despite all of those concerns, you've gone and granted this exemption for these 8 power stations. Why?
Yes, I have granted exemptions for several reasons. Obviously, we need to have a look at a balance between the need for clean air, which is a constitutional right. Also, we need to look at the energy needs of our country. So we can't grow our economy in the dark. So if I had not given them an exemption, the 29,000 megawatts of electricity would have needed to come off the grid from today, which means that we would have had a stage 25 load shedding. Now, of course, that is not possible to have because our economy would literally collapse under that load. So what I have done is I have granted exemptions for 6 power stations until 2030, which is 5 years, and then for Duva and Matla, I have given them extensions until 2034 because that is when they're going to decommission. I've set very strict conditions for Eskom, and I have made it very clear that there are health standards that they must adhere to. So, for example, they have to measure the air, they've got to take mitigating action, they've got to plant greenery around communities that are close to the power stations, they need to re-implement their clinics, and there are a number of socio-economic interventions as well. So they also have to do real-time data so they can inform the communities if the air is more dirty than usual, and that does happen. But crucially, they must get on with getting more independent power producers into the grid and also extend the transmission lines because we need green energy. So they must transition in the just energy transition, which says we need green energy, but we can't leave our communities behind as people work at the power stations, their families rely on them. So it's a complex matter.
Dr. George, have you seen anything that suggests that Eskom is moving along the scale, along the line of getting to the compliance with the minimum emissions standards? The reason I ask that is that if you're granting them this exemption, I would imagine that it's based on, yes, they are doing something. Are they doing something to try and bring their fleet into compliance, just based on where we are today, not based on the conditions that you've now imposed?
Right, yes. Eskom is moving in the direction towards greener energy, getting more independent power producers and extending the grid, but they're not moving fast enough, and that is an issue. So what I've also said in my ruling is that they must get out of the way of the independent producers and also make sure we can accelerate the growth of the transmission grid, because that's where they've been in the way. I did look at their financial situation also, because we've got to be obviously mindful of that. But in the big scheme, Eskom have articulated that they do want to move in the direction of the green. They do want to manage their emissions. And I think they must get the opportunity to now show that they are in fact committed. Because if they do not, there are consequences. I can actually remove the exemptions at any time. So I've set a timeline, and if they do not meet it, then there will be consequences.
But in fairness, Dr. Deon George, that's a hollow threat, isn't it? Because you started this conversation by acknowledging the impact that would have to our power supply system, as well as the possibility of what you called stage 25 of load shedding. So that threat that you can remove these exemptions is a hollow threat. You and I know you could never do it. You could never do it.
Not necessarily, because I did consider switching off one of the power stations. I did actually consider that.
Which one?
And that would have either Duva or Matla.
Yeah.
Now, because they are smaller, etc., but that would result in at least one stage of load shedding. And then the question is, what does that do to the community, etc.? But it is in fact possible. There have been other stations that have switched off, but there have been very significant consequences. So you've got to balance it all. But I assure you, it is not a hollow threat. It is in fact possible to do that. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to punish our people for the bad behavior of Eskom. So as you say, it is a complex thing, because you say, well, are they too big to then be held to account? The answer is no. But then there are consequences. And then how do we then balance that for the people that were very heavily affected? So yeah, it's not a simple situation, but it's not a hollow threat. I can assure you of that.
Minister, do we have an understanding of the health impacts of polluted air in the areas concerned? And is that health impact even acknowledged by Eskom itself and its contribution to air pollution? Because, it's said that our fleet of coal-fired power stations is among the worst polluters in the country. Do we have a sense of the health impacts? The organization Center for Environmental Rights a few years ago spoke about approximately 2,200 deaths annually that are related to air pollution related causes.
It is true, Eskom is aware of the health impact. There is an argument also that there are other polluting factors as well, because people burn coal at home, for example. So there are other factors involved, but it is so that I did look at the health reports, and that it is so that the particulate matter, which is the ash, is negatively impacting on our children's lungs. Also that there are babies that are born with cleft palates, more babies born with cleft palates because of the air that their mother is breathing. So there are very definite health implications. That is why I have instructed that they must re-establish their clinic. They must monitor the air and alert the population when the air is more toxic than it usually is, because it works like that, and that they must then put greening measures in around the community, grow trees, plants, etc., that can mitigate that in the short run. But in the long run, they must transition to the green energy. That is the solution here.
All right. We'll have to see. At least there are tangibles that I believe communities in those areas will be able to monitor and report on. I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Deon George. He's Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply. Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard, to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
It's coming up to 22 minutes after 7. The African Transformation Movement, ATM President Vuyo Zungula, is pushing for a new private members bill that he says will expose NGOs funded by foreign entities that may be driving agendas intended to destabilize the country. The proposed legislation would seek to enhance transparency, according to Zungula, in NGO funding and curb foreign interference in the nation's political and developmental affairs. Vuyo Zungula, the president of the ATM, joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you. Why is this legislation needed and why at this particular juncture?
Morning, Thulasizwe. We are in a country where the lack of regulation of the NGO sector puts the country at risk of foreign influence in terms of the policies that we make as a country and our developmental objectives. We've seen in the past how many NGOs, especially in the environmental sector, has taken the government to court, blocking some initiatives that were going to be done by the government that would alleviate some of the problems of unemployment, of underdevelopment that we know that reality in our country. Now, that poses a risk in our view as the ATM in the sense that foreign-funded NGOs would be in a position of influencing the programs of government or blocking the programs of government, and in turn would lead the country to be blocked in terms of ensuring that we correct some of the problems that we have. So our solution, therefore, becomes this bill that, number one, will provide transparency so that every NGO that is operational in our country, there is clarity, the certainty as to who funds it, and because once people know who funds particular NGOs, they're able to pick up who then has greater influence in terms of those NGOs. And the second issue would be to limit and regulate some of the activities that are done by foreign-funded NGOs.
So, but if the problem is that these NGOs, which you say in many instances are foreign-funded, take government to court over laws and policies, well, someone will say government would have nothing to worry about if the policies, the laws and policies we put in place were unassailable constitutionally. They would stand master, whoever is bringing a challenge against them. So why is the solution not ensuring that the laws and policies that we put in place on various areas of life are sound and constitutionally sound, instead of clamping down, which is what many will see this as, clamping down on civil society?
It is not clamping down on civil society. It is more of regulating the activities of civil society to make sure that the activities of NGOs are aligned with our national interests. I'll make an example of the conflict of interest that exists sometimes because of some of these NGOs. You'll remember during the times of the COVID, when the country needed vaccines, there was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which donated money to SAPRA, which is the institution that was ultimately going to decide which way are we going when it comes to vaccines. Now, again, on the other side, you find that the decision that was taken by SAPRA was more aligned with a vaccine that was, in a way, from a company that Bill Gates has got shareholding in. So that is amongst other reasons, the conflict of interest that has been provided by this unregulated NGO sector. That's one. The second one, which is currently happening, where you've got a tobacco bill that is advanced by the government. Now, there was a discussion in NETLAG. The department's delegation was led by an individual that is heading up an organization that is a local branch of American fund, a local branch of an American NGO. Now, in that particular discussion in NETLAG, this individual is advancing the policies, the tobacco policies of the American NGO, which clearly shows the amount of influence in policy making processes. So this is not only focusing on blocking, NGOs from taking the government to court, but it is ensuring that we regulate the activities so that they are aligned with our developmental objectives.
All right, thank you for that. That's the ATM president, Vuyo Zungula, there weighing in on this private member's bill that he is proposing.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, good morning to you once again, Zai. So Masandawana are taking on Esperance today. They're saying they're ready, are they?
You know it's serious when Loftus turns into a courtroom.
Yeah?
Because Esperance will be on trial. Come 3 o'clock today. We are looking forward to this one.
Hopefully an unfair trial.
Yeah, something to do with altitude there in Pretoria. We better score early. That's all I can say. It's Sundowns, Cabo Yellow. They are taking it personal because remember, the Brazilians last year, they were kicked out of the competition by this very same team. Now, the Sundowns coach, Miguel Cardoso, will be plotting against his former team. And this is all happening this afternoon. Let's hear from Sundowns coach, Miguel Cardoso.
So the team is different from the one Sundowns played last year, but also the team has been becoming different since we left the club. This new coach will bring for sure something new on the team, but we expect the team to be loyal to the identity of Esperance. So it's a club that has a big identity regarding the way they play, their systems, though. So we don't expect that. We just expect them to be loyal to themselves.
Now, Orlando Pirates are also back on the big stage tonight. They face Algerian heavyweights MC Alger, first leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinal. The Buccaneers top their group unbeaten, and they're hoping to carry that momentum into Algiers. The last time Pirates reached this stage, they went all the way to the final back in 2013. At Manchester United, their manager Ruben Amorim will have defenders Harry Maguire and Lenny Euro back in the squad when their Premier League campaign resumes at Nottingham Forest tonight. Maguire missed United's most recent 2 league games due to a calf problem, and Euro had a foot injury. Rugby, David Brits and Sebastian Job have been called up to join the Springbok 7 squad in Singapore, where the 6th leg of the HSBC Sevens will take place this weekend. The duo are set to replace the injured Kieran Nokia and Gino Cupido following the conclusion of the Hong Kong Sevens, where the Blitzboks finished a disappointing 9th overall. Here's David Brits.
Everyone knows what happened over the weekend, but I mean, it's all things that we can control, and I think that once we fix those things, we'll be back to our winning ways. And I don't want no one in the team is panicking, and I just want to come and bring a calm and positive energy, lift the boys up, and be a voice for the boys on the training field to try to get their hopes and spirits back up.
And that's your wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. There'll be more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
All right, thank you for that, Zai. 7:30, let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the chairperson for Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Songezo Zibi, says there's a strong need to hold to account authorities in the OR Tambo District Municipality and Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape. The committee last week conducted oversight visits to a number of infrastructure-related projects. International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola says those who want government to change its foreign policy must follow proper channels. And Zimbabwean citizens have expressed concern over the crackdown on protesters after heavy police presence yesterday stifled planned mass protests against the President Emmerson Mnangagwa's bid to extend his rule until 2030. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update from Pretoria, the mighty Mopani Highway, a crash at XX this morning. It's pretty close to Rossen Road, very heavy if you're coming out of Shoshanguve. You might want to just divert down the M32 through Ondastapur to avoid the worst of that. High crash zone, that is the N14 towards Pretoria this time of morning, has claimed another crash victim there. It's between the R55, Pretoria West exit, and Brakfontein interchange. No lights, Winnie Mandela at the N1 Highway, bridge coming out of four ways along Winnie Mandela is heavy, and the N1 particularly north to get off and south to get off very heavy. The Mike 1's extremely bad this morning. Gold Reef City right through to about Glenhove Road in the Houghton Estate area is the delay there. Durban's N2 from the M7 up through Westwood Mall area towards Mgena Road, very heavy, a lot heavier than normal. There was some early morning disruption on the Kumashu Highway coming down towards Duffs Road. We thought that may have been related to yesterday's cash and transit heist. That traffic has all eased. It looks like that's section of roadway has been fully reopened to traffic. That's traffic flow. It's what the traffic flow indicates. And Cape Town, if you're on your way out to the airport, just a reminder about this fatal crash on the N2 before the N7, Jakes Kerville Drive. Traffic pushing back beyond Langa back towards Jan Smuts Drive. So heavy traffic. Don't get caught running out for flights and running late at the back of that queue. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.4 FM in Durban. The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. So Ndauling, tell me about the country delivering a trade surplus for the month of February. That's a positive, isn't it?
That's right, Thulas, and this is according to data from SARS. The country's trade balance has bounced back into surplus territory with a preliminary trade surplus of 20.9 billion rands in February, meaning that the country sold more goods to other countries than it bought from them. Now, the surplus is a turnaround from January's revised deficit of 16.8 billion rands. Now, exports drove this growth, increasing by 10.4% to 164 billion rand, thanks to strong growth in gold and vehicle exports. Now, in a Business Day article, Investec economist Lara Holtz noted that exports of vehicles and transport equipment grew 77% month on month. Imports in the meantime fell by 13.5% to 143.1 billion rands. Now, despite this month-on-month improvement, the year-to-date trade balance remained in deficit, totaling 4.1 billion rands. Now, trade with neighboring countries, including Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, and Namibia remained a bright spot, recording a surplus of 10.8 billion rands. SA's trade surplus with the rest of the world stood at 10.1 billion rands, with exports rising 11% in February. Looking ahead, Holtz cautioned that uncertainty, of course, around those U.S. trade tariffs could impact global trade and growth.
So the electronic and smart devices market is very competitive. One player, Huawei, I believe it's pronounced. Tell me about Huawei. You're saying that their sales are recovering and they've recovered for the year 2024.
That's right, Thulas. And something to note is that it's just because they've been seeing increased sales in China and just China. So internationally, really still struggling, of course, on the back of those tariffs that were initially imposed on the company. Now, earnings out from Huawei, delivering a 22.4% year-on-year increase in revenue for 2024, reaching 862 billion Chinese yuan. This marks the company's second highest revenue figure, just shy of the record 891.4 billion yuan reported in 2020. Now, the group says growth was driven by its core telecommunications and consumer businesses. The ICT infrastructure division, which includes its carrier business, saw revenue rise 4.9%, while the consumer business, which includes smartphones, reported a 38.3% increase in sales. Now, Huawei's smartphone business in China saw a significant resurgence, with shipments jumping 37% and market share rising to 16% from 12% in 2023. This growth came at the expense of Apple, which saw its market share decline in China. Now, to mitigate the effects of U.S. sanctions Huawei has been expanding into new areas such as digital power, cloud computing, and intelligent automotive solutions. These segments reported upbeat revenue growth, with digital power rising 24% and intelligent automotive solutions increasing to 26.4 billion won. That's in sales, the total sales that came through from that segment. Now, despite the revenue growth, Huawei faces ongoing challenges, including restricted access to chips and Google's Android operating system. And so analysts remain cautious about the company's overseas prospects.
All right. Lastly, Ndauleng, please give us another recap of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So the sell-off sparked by Trump's tariffs is on pause as markets stage somewhat of a recovery this morning. Many analysts, however, say this could be short-lived as the tariff deadline looms. In Asia, the Japanese Nikkei, recovering from correction territory, is currently in the green, up 0.25%. Over in the U.S., futures in negative territory, reversing yesterday's gains. Traders watching Trump's next move and awaiting jobs data, which is out on Friday. Meanwhile, stocks tumbled back at home, with local investors assessing global news and eyeing the upcoming parliamentary budget vote. The all-share closed in the red, down over 1% in yesterday's session. Looking at the rand now, volatility still the name of the game. The local unit now above the 1830 mark at 1834 to the dollar this hour.
All right, Ndauleng, thank you for that. We'll hear from Ndauleng one more time. That's coming up just after 8:30, in which update Ndauleng will give you a sense of what the markets are likely to look like on this Tuesday.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let me take some of your calls this morning and some of your voice notes. Quite a lot that you've been sending through. A lot of you responding to the conversation we had earlier on about the rebranding exercise that the eThekwini Municipality is undertaking. So let me take a few of those and then take some of your calls.
Hi, Thulasizwe. Can you ask Nsele there? What are they doing regarding the prepaid meters that are not available? We know that some people wait for 6 months or even a year to get their prepaid meter boxes. So while they are wasting money here.
Yeah, no, I think the sense that I got from him was to say that this doesn't suspend spending on service delivery. It just complements according to how they view it as a city, to say if you rebrand, you will attract more investment, more tourism, and that will just add more revenue to the city, which revenue you can direct to service delivery. And I imagine that would include those prepaid meters that you're talking about.
Morning, Thulas. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. How can the brand of eThekwini change because you put in a new logo? You've got to change the destruction. You know, you've got to fix everything first. The brand is one of a broken city. So having a logo that says everything's fine is not going to change it.
Yeah, there was a suggestion I did put through to Mandla Nsele, and if you listened, you will have heard that his response was to say the logo is one aspect, but there's also quite a number of other aspects that they'll be incorporating in the brand refresh. And I did even suggest that sitting where I am, I don't even know what the logo of the city of Joburg looks like. And to be quite honest, the eThekwini logo is something of a dome. I think it's the top dome of the City Hall, if I'm not mistaken, that the city back then in 2000 believed this is emblematic of what the city is all about. But I've never really paid much attention to it. I think the City of Cape Town's logo is Table Mountain, but even that for me is not even striking more than the experience that you will have in a city like Joburg. Let me put it this way. The way things are in the city of Joburg right now, the dilapidation of infrastructure, the non-working traffic lights, the water flowing everywhere, City of Joburg can commission the best marketing team in the world and have the best logo, a logo better than Nike's, better than Just Do It. I will not buy it because the experience is just different altogether. All right, let me take another voice note. This one has to do with the situation around the budget and the processes that will unfold in Parliament today and tomorrow.
Good morning to Thulasizwe. I hope that the parties in Parliament will come up with a budget that will be beneficial to all South Africans, and that the parties will not try to outsmart each other, but find a way to work together to have a budget that will benefit all of us in South Africa. I'm Bafana Kumalo in Memel.
Yeah, Bafana, thank you for that. That is the hope of all of us, really, that level heads, cool heads, but also the best interests of South Africans will be pushed when that sitting takes place. Today, there will be that sitting of the Portfolio Committee, and then tomorrow will be the National Assembly voting on the budget. Let me take some of your calls. Let me start with Incognito in Durban. Good morning, Incognito. Talk to me. You want to talk about eThekwini and the rebranding?
Yeah, it's my first time talking. It's my first time talking to you.
Why? We've been waiting for you.
No, I've been listening to you since last September whenever you've joined in. But today is because of the topic of Durban, and it's because of where I reside. You know, I am totally against what the spokesperson of the previous conversation you had with him. You see, look, man, I've got like one of these municipal uniforms, but the hat. When you're talking about the logo, you know you're talking about the top of the city dome and all of that.
Yes.
It's in blue. All of that, the blue represents the waters, the oceans of Durban. You see, now instead of them putting in work to clean up the city, to make things work economically and everything, they just want to rebrand and rename everything. Let me give you another example. Sure. Just last year, they changed the number plates, the registration place of the Natal.
That's the KZN provincial government.
That was totally unnecessary. You see, out of all of South Africa, 9 provinces, we know that since apartheid or even after or before, towns and regions and cities were determined by the registration plate.
Yes.
Like Transvaal, Cape Town and Natal. It was very basic. You could see a number plate, you could identify it.
Yes.
And it was very easy for you to know which city and town.
Sure.
So now they're just doing things out of no reason, and the people are struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, man. I can tell you're really frustrated by that whole thing. Completely opposed to the rebranding of eThekwini is Incognito there. Let me take a call from Romeo in Tshwane. Good morning to you, Romeo. You want to talk to me about Zimbabwean police. What about them?
Yes, good morning, Tulas, and the SFM listeners. Good morning, how are you doing?
Very well, how are you?
Tulas, I just wanted you to say this behavior of police all the time when people want to protest and the intelligence when people want to protest, cracking down of the civilian, a day that will be volatile will come. And that can never be stopped when a situation becomes horrible. I think what I wanted to think, what I want to say is about when people wanted to protest, they must be given an opportunity to say through protesting without intimidating them. The voice of the people is the same voice of those people that you go and ask for electorate when you are campaigning for the voting. When they are coming in their numbers, you applaud them, you are happy. Or also when they are coming against you, you must welcome them. What about the guidelines of the SADC? What do they say? Do they protect the SADC region, or is about to fold their hands and watching the situation, whatever it is?
Romeo, thank you for that. And Romeo, of course, the backdrop to what he's talking about is the protests that were meant to take place in Zimbabwe yesterday. The overwhelming report and sense is that a lot of people actually chose to stay at home rather than go out onto the streets amid a heavy police and security deployment that took place yesterday. Nhlanhla in KwaZulu-Natal, good morning. Which UIF scandal do you want to talk to me about this morning? Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. Thank you for taking my call. Listen, my brother, I've got a problem with the UIF policy, first of all, because it is unjust to the South Africans, the workers. When it says people must contribute for 30 years and receive the contributions of 4 years, and the 26 years must be government tax. Yesterday, I spoken about the involvement of public in policy making.
Yeah.
And when the policy was made, which people were consulted about that policy? Because it is very unjust, my brother.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
And then we are having the scandals of billions and billions being stolen by the government. And Thulasizwe spoken about spending about 20 billion last year. And then the recent minister speaking about spending another millions on projects which were never consulted. Nothing has ever happened. Even the minister has come on record to account on our issues, my brother.
No, thank you for that.
The minister, please.
Which minister, Nhlanhla?
The Minister of Labour, please.
Okay, no, that sounds good. We will take it up. I've picked up that this is an issue that's quite close to your heart, and a lot of people watching developments, particularly around the issues of our labor laws and what tweaks are being suggested to those labor laws. It's certainly a suggestion that we will take up and see if we can take it forward. Crispin in Durban, good morning. You want to respond to what Vuyo Zungula of the ATM has had to say this morning?
Yes, but let me start by commiserating with you about that soccer result the other day.
Which
just to make it a little bit worse.
It's a misconception.
You don't know which one I'm talking about.
It's a misconception.
To make it a bit worse,
yes.
My godson, Colin, says that his grandfather was the first person playing for Lamont Golden Arrows who kicked with his heels. So, we've got a family connection. I'm sorry. Sure. But my point is, look, that is a bit crazy. But every authoritarian regime has got this idea that the outside people influencing our politics, hiding from the reality of whose money is controlling our politics within this country. Like I would much rather have scrutiny on who's actually funding which party and for what purpose. The other idea is that the way that environment is set up against development, like development is, smashing the environment, polluting the air, and creating a small number of jobs. Okay? That's the dominant view of what development is about. The costs of that view of development, of course, are passed in particular onto the poor. We poison people. We cause early deaths. And this is all justified by this idea of environment. And we have to have people who actually actively work to protect the environment and to protect people. And that is what development should be about.
All right, got you. I take your point. Thank you for that. That's Crispin in Durban there, weighing in on which areas should enjoy priority in terms of scrutiny, saying there that he thinks that the political parties, who funds political parties, should actually enjoy more scrutiny than the conversation about who funds non-governmental organizations, some of which take government to court over laws and policies. Colin in the Eastern Cape, good morning. You want to talk about the logo in eThekwini?
Good morning, sir. Yes. I'm also feeling just like the other listeners are feeling in. I mean, marketing is an essential part of business, right? But sometimes you don't have to spend as much on marketing. I mean, marketing brings in sales, so obviously it's going to bring in more customers to the city, but you don't need to go and spend, I don't know what the amount was, I think it's something like 2.7 billion.
2.8 million rand, million,
yes. So, I mean, with that 1 million, you can already get a few younger youngsters into your department and maybe just start getting work, or just start a new EPWP program and try to fix your city instead of spending almost 3 million on fixing a marketing strategy that's probably going to go nowhere because you're not going to get sales because, like the listener says, there's basically nothing that your city is doing right. You understand?
Yeah, Colin, do you not buy the argument that says a city whose economy depends in large part on tourism, on attracting tourism, does need a strong brand? And if you are investing in that brand, you will realize the returns, maybe not immediately, but a few years down the line. Do you not buy that?
No, I'm all for marketing and all of that, but I just feel like you don't have to spend a lot of marketing. Sometimes, the brand and how the product looks must be able to just sell itself without you having to go spend more on marketing. 100%. And then I want to touch on, I like what Ellen did, sir, when he said the employees in Donald Trump's administration must give him feedback on what they do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, okay, Colin, thank you for that. I've got to move on, Colin. Thank you for that. That's Colin weighing in on two matters, the issue around the logo and the value of investing in it, but also touching on that email that was unpopular with many federal workers in the United States.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We'll kick it off on the Equality side of Joburg with two crashes on the N3 route this morning, northbound at Heldenay, so very heavy as you come up from Albert and Germiston into Elands interchange where the N12 and N3 meet. From there, passing Cement Factory up to that crash is heavy, and a collision at Van Buren on the N3 going south, so from Edenvale via Galulis, that's all backed up. Let's check into Pretoria with that crash on the mighty Mopani Highway, still there, very heavy coming out of Shosha this morning down through XX. We've been saying just move across, use the M35 Sopan Road and get through, avoiding all of that. Crash on the N14 in that high collision zone this time of the morning. It's the Krugersdorp Highway between the R55 Pretoria West exit and the N1 Brockfontein interchange, and a crash driving up into Pretoria near Garsfontein. The M1 north backs through to the R21 highway. Crossing the Durban, N2 has been heavy this morning, probably heavier than you might be expecting given the fact that it is school holidays. We saw some real heavy volume on the N2 across the Durban yesterday. We're seeing it again this morning from the M7 up to Westwood Mall, and then southbound there's some delays coming from Umgeni Road with issues linking through Spaghetti Junction out to Pavilion before you're really out of that sizable backlog. Also a breakdown before Mshlanga, so coming through from Sabaya, that's quite heavy as well. Cape Town traffic this morning, and one fairly busy from Plattercliff Hill through to Kuburg interchange. You pick up more queues through Woodstock in towards the elevated freeway entering the CBD, and a crash on your way to the airport. Make sure you know about these delays if you're heading out for a flight connection. The collision just before the N7 Jake Scoville Drive, it is fatal. It will be there for a bit longer. Traffic parking back towards Jan Smuts Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
It's 5 minutes to 8. You're listening to the Morning Brief here on SAFM. The United States' 25% import tariff on vehicles and key vehicle parts announced by President Donald Trump last week has raised significant concerns for the South African automotive manufacturing sector. The tariff, cited by the White House as a necessary measure to protect national security and U.S. domestic automobile industry, could disrupt trade relationships, particularly with South Africa, one of the leading exporters of vehicles and automotive components to the United States. I'm joined now by Michael Mabasa, who is the CEO of the National Association of Automobile Manufacturers of South Africa. That's NAMSA. He's also a transport economist. Good morning and thank you for your time. So we're a big exporter of vehicles, including to the U.S. market. What do we gauge will be the impact of the tariffs as announced by Donald Trump on our exports?
Good morning, Tulas. The impact on what the United States has announced last week is definitely going to be significant for the South African automotive industry, primarily because you'd recall, Tulas, that 66% of the vehicles that we produce in this country goes out of the country as exports. So we're actually currently selling more vehicles to the globe than we actually sell for our local citizens in South Africa. And the United States is one of the biggest, customer because they're the third biggest customer for vehicles that we export into that country. You've got companies like, for example, BMW in Roslyn in Tshwane, and also Mercedes-Benz in East London, who largely export their vehicles into the United States, and I think this announcement is definitely going to have a huge impact on the sector.
So the response from especially European countries and European car makers has been to say that, well, we'll simply hike the pricing for the U.S. market, so these tariffs in the end will hit U.S. consumers and car buyers in the United States. Earlier on, we were talking with Ndauling about Hyundai, also warning that the pricing of their vehicles could increase in the United States. Does that ameliorate in any way for the impact? Mr. Mabasa, can you hear me? I don't know what happened there. We seem to have lost Michael Mabasa there as we were talking about the impact of the 25% tariffs. The U.S. President Donald Trump basically says if you make it in the USA, so your vehicle, if you assemble it and make it in the United States, then that's great. You will make a lot of money. But if you are hoping to import into the United States, you will have to pay quite more by way of tariffs. Mr. Mabasa, I believe we have you back on the line. I was asking whether the working into the formula of a price hike for U.S. consumers of these cars that we export to the United States, would that ameliorate in any way the impact on our automotive sector?
Well, look, the increase of any tariffs is obviously a blunt instrument that different governments are using in order for them to cushion. For example, in the case of the United States, what Donald Trump has identified as his that are assembled in South Africa. So certainly that will have an impact. But it's important to underscore that in this particular instance, I know that there's been quite a lot of decisions taken in Washington that are particular and specific about South Africa. But this one is across the board. Donald Trump imposing these 25% import tariffs for all vehicles being imported into the United States. So we are just one of many markets, automotive
manufacturing hubs that are being hit by these tariffs. So always important to put that into context as well. 8 a.m., let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, SIU to probe Eastern Cape municipalities and Lamula slams DA criticism on foreign policy. Good morning. The chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Songezo Zibi, says there is a strong need to hold to account authorities in the OR Tambo District Municipality and Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape. Last week, the committee conducted an oversight visit to a number of infrastructure-related projects. It flagged what it says is a culture of failing to implement consequence management. In the Buffalo City Metro, the committee visited the incomplete Mdantsane swimming pool where over 50 million rand had already been spent. Zibi says they are planning to table the matter before Parliament and have roped in the Special Investigation Unit to probe the municipalities.
We're going to have multiple interventions. The first is that there are going to be a couple of in-depth audits into very specific areas within these municipalities. Secondly, the SIU is going to apply either for an expanded proclamation or for a new proclamation in order to investigate certain areas. Thirdly, we believe very strongly that there needs to be lifestyle audits in several areas, especially infrastructure, project management, and so on, because there are also instances where people are clearly living way beyond their salaries and so on.
International Relations and Cooperations Minister Ronald Lamola says those who want government to change its foreign policy must follow proper channels. Lamola was speaking at the launch of the Aziz Pahad Dialogue at the Department of International Relations, says the Government of National Unity Agreement is clear on this issue. He says there is a statement of intent that all parties ratified.
It is therefore shocking that the DA will argue that we are just implementing ANC policy in foreign affairs, when they have agreed to the above in the statement of intent, and it is what we continue to implement. The Government of National Unity does not supersede the Constitution.
The Judicial Service Commission will today hold interviews to fill vacancies in the Labour and the Electoral Court. One candidate, Judge Lester Adams of the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg, will be interviewed for a vacancy in the Electoral Court, while 4 candidates will be interviewed to fill 3 vacancies in the Labour Court. The April leg of the JSC interviews will only sit for 1 day and is expected to begin at 9 o'clock this morning at the CSIR International Convention Centre in Pretoria. 3 men have been shot and killed in what appears to be taxi violence at Vlakfontein in the south of Johannesburg. Gauteng police say they are investigating 3 cases of murder. Officers say when they arrived at the scene, they found 3 men in a Toyota Quantum with gunshot wounds. Gauteng police spokesperson Thulasizwe Simelane.
The police attended to a murder scene where they found 3 men shot and killed inside a Toyota vehicle. The motive of the shooting is unknown at this stage and police investigations continue. Anyone who may have information that can assist with the investigation is requested to contact the Crime Stop line at 08600 10111 or anonymously give tip-offs on my SAPS app, which can be downloaded on any smartphone.
And finally, Zimbabwean citizens have expressed concern over the crackdown on protesters after a heavy police presence yesterday suppressed planned mass protest against President Emmerson Mnangagwa's bid to extend his rule until 2030. Mnangagwa ascended to power in 2017 after Robert Mugabe's ousting and is in his final term. His former allies, the war veterans, led the calls for the demonstrations. A concerned citizen, Cleo Mazwangindaba, says protesters faced a brutal pushback from government.
We are dealing with a regime that is very brutal. We know their methods apparently of installing fear, arresting people on trumped up charges, and even using bullets and unarmed citizens. You remember the 2018 post-election demonstrations where opposition members were shot in cold blood. So people stayed in their homes in fear of police.
I saw them yesterday in the CPT, and it was quite intimidating.
Recapping the top story, the chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Songezo Zibi, says there's a strong need to hold to account authorities in the OR Tambo District Municipality and Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Let's give you an update on the nation's biggest traffic delays. Joburg's M3 under some pressure. Northbound, a crash at Heldenace. Delays coming up from Elands passing Cement Factory. Southbound, a crash at Van Buren, holding traffic from Edenvale through Galulis and causing delay on the N12 and R24 approaching routes as well. Pretoria side, a crash on the M1 North at Garsfontein. Traffic backlogging through towards the R21. And coming out of Shoshenguve, that collision at XX still causing a backlog of traffic as you pass XX down towards the scene just before the Ralston Road off-ramp. Durban, very busy this morning on the N2, both ways going between Mgena and Spaghetti Junction. Southbound, you've got a breakdown of Spaghetti. Northbound, you've got the roadworks. And once you get off that N3 south and get through Spaghetti, delays continue out towards the Pavilion Mall area as well. Cape Town, fatal crash on the N2 in front of Langa. It is outbound towards the airport before you get to Jakes Kerville Drive. Traffic parking back in a delay to Jan Smuts Drive and the Jakes Kerville Drive N7 roadwork still there in Goodwood. Heavy queue back to Franz Conradi. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer. Coach Hugo Bruges has issued a warning to SAFA. And in rugby, the Stormers director of rugby, John Dobson, says the team accomplished what they wanted to in their 2-game URC tour to the UK. Let's unpack just before 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7 minutes after 8 on this Tuesday. It's good to be in your company. We're into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. So just recapping and just looking through what we've been talking about, a lot of you reacting and responding to that conversation we had earlier on with Mandla Ntsele of the city of eThekwini about the rebranding exercise, which by their calculation will contribute to eThekwini's attractiveness in terms of tourists and investments, and therefore boost revenues for the city of eThekwini, and thereby contribute to the delivery of services in the city of eThekwini. But a lot of you still have a lot to say about the 2.8 million rand that Mr. Ntsele told us will be spent not just on the logo itself, but basically the logo as well as accompanying processes of public consultation that will lead to a logo that the city believes is more in tune with its brand where it is today and where it's going into the future. The logo that they have now, which looks like the top of City Hall, that dome at the top of City Hall, dates back to the year 2000, and the city believes the time has come to now get a new logo and refresh their brand. So I'll take some of your calls as well as your other inputs and WhatsApp voice notes. A lot of you also talking about the conversation started by Vuyo Zungula of the ATM, the president of the ATM, about a bill, introducing a private members bill that he hopes would infuse transparency into the funding of non-governmental organizations, particularly foreign funding by non-governmental organizations. His concern there being that some NGOs are funded by external entities that have an agenda of destabilizing South Africa. So I'll take your calls on that as well, your inputs as well. Also, as the processes around the budget start to unfold, especially in Parliament, with that meeting that is set to take place today, as well as the voting on the budget that is expected tomorrow. So those are some of the issues on the table. Feel free, give me a call and weigh in on those conversations. The number to dial is 0 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X, we are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram, and we are live as always on our YouTube channel, that is SAFM Radio. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Get unbeatable football odds with SuperSport Bet. From derbies to title deciders, our Super Boosts give you boosted odds you won't find anywhere else. Switch today and get a 100% deposit match up to 5,000 Rand. SuperSport Bet is licensed by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. Bookmaker license 10191097. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program. Toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help 076 675 0710.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
11 minutes after 8. A new study by the University of Johannesburg reveals alarming levels of cancer-causing chemicals in Gauteng's Klip River, a crucial water source for local communities, livestock and ecosystems. Researchers found that the river's sediments contain dangerous concentrations of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH, and chemicals linked to several health risks like cancer, organ damage, and developmental disorders. Let's welcome into the conversation Professor Abaine Ambushe, who is a researcher at the University of Johannesburg. I hope I pronounced your name correctly there, Prof. Good morning to you. Tell me what PAHs are and why their discovery within the system of the Klip River is of concern.
Good morning, Thulasizwe, to you and to your listeners, and thank you very much for having me. Yes, you pronounced my name correctly. PAHs means, or polycyclic aromatic organic compounds means, they are organic pollutants which are composed of, they are fused of two or more aromatic rings containing carbon and hydrogen atoms. The low molecular weight pHs contain 2 to 3 fused aromatic rings, whereas high molecular weight pHs contain 4 to 6 fused rings. So in this study, what we have done was, over dry and wet seasons, we collected sediment samples along Klip River, the area Lenasia, Soweto, Alberto Park, and different sites. And what we did was we quantified pHs in sediment samples, but the unique about our study is we expose these sediments also to zebrafish embryo toxicity test. So zebrafish embryo is chosen because zebra has 70% of similarity with humans in terms of genetic and physiological characters. So this showed, developmental retardation, effect in heartbeats, low blood flow circulation, and even mortality of most of the embryos within the days.
So what is the working theory of where why we have such a high concentration of these PAHs in the Klip River system? How did it come about?
Great question, Thulasizwe. This, there is a historical pollution of mining activities in Johannesburg area. Moreover, there are waste materials also, whether it is waste from industrial area or manufacturing sector or municipalities or households. So those wastes, whether treated partially or untreated, will end up in water bodies. So there are oil spills can cause pHs, petroleum and petroleum-related products, byproducts can cause pHs, burning of coal, burning of waste material, biomass, all this contribute to the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons as a sources of pHs.
Just tell me about the importance of the zebrafish embryos in your research. You said something about the similarities between zebrafish and humans. Is it your extrapolation that the way that the zebrafish were affected by these PAHs and their effects is something that can be comparable to how these PAHs are likely affecting humans?
Yes, zebrafish share approximately 70% of their genetic and physiological characters with humans. And we use zebrafish as a model animal because it can represent also aquatic organisms, including fish, and it shares also some genetic and physiological characters with humans. The effect which is shown in zebrafish is it can be extrapolated to humans, it can be extrapolated to aquatic organisms. You know, the fish is there in the water, and these pHs are trapped in sediment. They linger in sediment, and they are persistent organic compounds. So the fish can ingest these pHs, and these pHs will accumulate in fish bodies or tissues, and when we consume them, so it will end up in humans also. The livestock around the area, they drink water, and these pHs can be transferred to human beings through food chain, consumption of meat and dairy. So that's why the main reason of selecting zebrafish is it can show the effect in aquatic organisms, the effect also in humans, the possible effect that which we have seen in zebrafish.
So just that, as well as the flow of the Klip River and how it links to the main river systems of Gauteng, water sources, the Vaal River system. Just underscore then what the impact of that is and what the response should be of authorities, of communities to the findings that you've made.
Yes, you're right. So this Klip River feeds to Valley River, which is the main source of river for Gauteng and for millions of people in South Africa. So these pollutants, not only pHs, other organic compounds like personal care products, heavy metals can end up in this Valley River. And Valley River, actually, the raw water is not supplied, so it is treated. And the treatment efficiency can determine whether these pHs are ending up in tap water or not. So we need to think about our treatment system, how efficient it is. Is it efficient to treat both heavy metals as well as organic pollutants, etc. So in this study, we identified the hotspots. So cleanup is possible. There are different physical and chemical methods for environmental remediation, microbial methods, and the different works which are doing in my research group at Department of Chemical Analysis. But I would say prevention is better than cure.
Yeah, it always is. Thank you for that. Thank you for those insights. Lots of food for thought for many authorities across the spectrum in areas around Gauteng and the city of Johannesburg around this prevalence of these, cancer-causing chemicals that these researchers from the University of Johannesburg have found along the Klip River and sediments on the Klip River. That's Professor Abaine Ambushe, who is a researcher at the University of Johannesburg.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
19 minutes after 8. Let me take a call from Jackson in Sandton. Good morning to you, Jackson. You want to respond to the conversation we were having about the impact of the tariffs on vehicles being exported into the United States, yeah?
Yes, Tulas, good morning. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Great. I just wanted to find out, because I think, don't you think we need someone to actually quantify the impact of these tariffs, because I'm informed that our trade with the United States makes up about 7% of our total trade. So how much of that 7% is the automotive space? We need a proper quantification of that before we panic.
So,
because the gentleman from NAMSA says that the United States is the third largest consumer of our vehicle exports. So, but that doesn't say anything, because third largest could be 2%, it could be 99%.
Yeah,
so
I hear what you're saying.
What exactly is that? Because we like panicking before we quantify things. Because if it's 7%, really, should we really be panicking that much?
So
if 7% is the overall total trade with the United States.
So the data that's out there, Jackson, is that it's about 6.5% of our total vehicle exports. And in numbers from the research we were able to find, that's 25,553 vehicles in 2024 that went from South Africa to the United States. But you're right, in the bigger scheme of where we export to, I suppose we do need to quantify, not to say that it's insignificant. It clearly is significant. Any losses to our export markets are losses we can ill afford given the state of our economy.
Yeah, I do understand that, but I think there's also opportunity to explore other markets like everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
If you look at what Canada is doing, they're getting into bed with the Russias and Chinas of this world and with Europe. So there are alternatives. We can't be beholden to one country as if they are God's gift to the earth.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And another thing, lastly, Jackson, before I just let you go, another element to consider is that there are certain vehicles that are made exclusively in South Africa for certain markets. So left-hand drive models of certain Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs. And if, the United States, if I recall correctly, is one of those countries where it's a left-hand drive vehicles that drive in that country. So there are those dynamics that then come into play that say this is a unique market that we've been serving uniquely, and therefore if that market is hit, we are hit quite hardest.
Yeah, but I think the left-hand, right-hand thing is a production facility configuration matter. And remember, those left-hand cars come from a facility that produces right-hand cars.
Gotcha. All right.
So,
Jackson, yeah, thank you for that. Gotten us thinking about how to infuse resilience in terms of the markets that we serve with our automotive manufacturing sector. Let me take some of your voice notes. Let me take this one. It has to do with the issue of value-added tax and I suppose the proposed increases there too.
Good morning, Thulasizwe Simelane, Mafefe, Limpopo. Political parties in the GNU and opposition parties opposed the increase of VAT, but they are going to be fooled by the ANC and vote with the ANC in the budget vote. But the voters are watching. They are going to punish them in the upcoming local election and 2029 general election. Watch the space.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of analysis that's asking what price will these political parties pay with the voters? Because ultimately, that's where accountability lies, right? What price will the ANC, for its proposal through Minister Enoch Godongwana of a VAT increase of 0.5 percentage point this year, 0.5 percentage point next year. What price will the ANC pay? What price will the other political parties pay with the voters? Will there be a price at all, or will the voters be understanding of the state of our finances and basically maybe say, hey, it was a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, the situation dictated that there had to be some kind of sacrifices that are made. I don't have the answers to those questions.
Good morning, Thulas and your team. This is Sakile Tsubin from Bontrabialingan. Thulas, Eskom must make sure that we do not experience load shedding anymore, as they are expected to increase the price of electricity. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for that. I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that simple. We had gotten so comfortable, hadn't we, that Eskom has improved its generation capacity and is able to deal with all of these pressures that it faces from time to time, only to be hit with rolling power outages about a month ago or so, and they just made a return. And now I think we're at a point where anything is possible, really. Some generation units trip here and there, and in no time you then get that announcement from Eskom saying that load shedding may be announced at short notice. So yeah, the price is going up, but I don't know. Are we at a point where our generation capacity is stable enough to withstand the pressures, including the pressures of winter?
Hi, Thulas. In regard to rapings and crimes taking over in South Africa, we'll talk until hell freezes over or until cows come home. Nothing is going to come up unless we go for the deterrent measures such as death penalty. We've been singing about that for a long time. Thank you, Willie and Kuma.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's an age-old debate, isn't it? The deterrent value of punishment such as capital punishment is not only being debated now, but it was also debated many, many years ago when those decisions were being made about whether to retain it or to lose it. The trend, generally, if I can just add that without weighing too much into that debate, the trend internationally is that even countries that have capital punishment, many of them are reviewing and changing their constitutions and saying that they are moving away from it. And I don't know what the factors, I suppose it's just a shift in perceptions around the punishment and the value of punishments such as the death penalty, more than it is an issue that talks to the deterrent value. Well, that may factor in whether or not it serves as a deterrent from their experience. But I tell you now, I think even Zimbabwe is talking about moving away from the death penalty, and they've retained it for quite some time. A lot of the countries that have it actually don't carry out executions anymore. So you have people who are on death row for many, many years without ever being executed. But thank you for that. We'll take more of your calls and WhatsApp voice notes a bit later on.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you once again. So the Bafana coach is preparing his charges, but at the same time giving a stern warning about the South African Football Association that watch what you need to watch. No blunders off the field.
Absolutely, especially on the back of Bafana's 18-game unbeaten run. And Safa has an unbeaten run of admin blunders. So let's hope we come
so spicy.
It's a true
then your
story.
turn will come for you.
Yeah, well, listen, the coach as well firing a warning to Safa, and not to his players, by the way. It says it's time for Safa to clean up their act after the embarrassing Teboho Mokwena's eligibility saga, which could have cost South Africa vital World Cup qualifying points. Now, despite the chaos off the field, Bafana are unbeaten in 18 matches, which is an impressive run built on grit and consistency. Let's go to Mamelodi Sundowns. They are back on the CAF Champions League duty tonight. And it's personal for their coach, the Tunisian Giants Esperance. It's a first leg encounter in this quarterfinal happening at Loftus Versfeld. Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso will be plotting against his former club who knocked Masandawana out in last year's semi-final. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Downs are on an unbeaten run at home in the tournament so far.
So the team is different from the one Sundowns played last year. But also the team has been becoming different since we left the club. This new coach will bring for sure something new on the team, but we expect the team to be loyal to the identity of Esperance. So it's a club that has a big identity regarding the way they play, their systems, so we don't expect that. We just expect them to be loyal to themselves.
And if they win big tonight, that Sundowns, it could set them on course for a dream All-South African final against Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates are up against the heavyweights MC Algiers. That's later tonight. And the Cape Town City interim coach, Diego Peral, is banking on the team's quality to turn things around as they currently face the risk of regulation. The citizens sack Muhsin Etegral prior to the recent FIFA break, with Peral stepping up alongside Roger de Sa and Lebo Manyama to see out the remainder of what has been a season to forget.
It's a big responsibility for everyone, not just for me. None of us want to be in the NFD next season. So a big responsibility for the players to step up, which I thought they had today. Big responsibility for the entire tech team. This is it's not a one-man show. Big responsibility to everyone that's here. Two coaches have gone. We're the ones that were here through the whole thing. So now we need to fix it,
And finally, cricket. The Mumbai Indians, they beat Kolkata Knight Riders by 8 wickets. Kolkata endured a horror start to their innings, losing openers Sunil Narayan and Quinton de Kock for a duck and 1 respectively, slipping to 2 for 2. And that's how we wrap it up. We'll have more sport around 12:30 with John Hedeka. I'm Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, thank you for that update. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the ANC's chief whip Mdumiseni Ntuli says a creative solution needs to be found in order for Parliament to be able to pass the country's budget. This comes amid an impasse with GNU members over the proposed VAT increase by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. The chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Songezo Zibi, says there is a strong need to hold to account authorities in the OR Tambo District Municipality and Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape. Last week, the committee conducted oversight visits to a number of infrastructure-related projects. And lobby group AfriForum says it's not possible for the principal of Bergview College to have been involved in the rape of a 7-year-old girl that allegedly took place on school premises in October last year. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still sluggish on the Mopani Highway coming out of Shoshanguve this morning. That crash at XX just before you get to Ralston Road is, even at this hour, still backlogging traffic on the way to Pretoria. Jetbo crashed out Galulis, and 12 and R24 routes coming in from Ekurhuleni are heavy as they merge in towards that scene, which is around the Boeing Road Bridge. And the N3 North crash at Heldenace, still backlogging traffic coming through from the Ilans interchange. Just had a call about very heavy mist. Thank you, Eugene, reporting in on the traffic line. Very heavy mist around the central Krugersdorp area. Please take it easy out there. Patches where visibility is significantly reduced today. Durban had a busy N2 all day yesterday. Got another one lining up today. Just busy in terms of volume on that section between Umgena and Spaghetti Junction. And this morning there's a breakdown before you get to 4 levels. So again, quite a backlog from the Umgena Road section. And Cape Town crash on the N2 out of town this morning just before you get to the N7 Jakes Kerville Drive. We warned because of the fatal nature of that it will be there for some time. Traffic still parking back to Jan Smuts. Very slow passing Langa. Make sure you got some time to get through that and get your flight connections at the airport. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.2 FM in East London. The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Tell me about ArcelorMittal South Africa getting a cash injection to keep their long steel business. This has been an area of concern for our economy and the prospect of job losses, hasn't it?
Yes, Thulas, and it seems like government is really taking this seriously. The government really pressing on with its efforts to rescue ArcelorMittal SA's long steel business. This time around, it's put 1.7 billion rand worth of funding on the table. The funds are from the IDC. This move will temporarily defer the closure of AMSA's long steel plants in Newcastle, Vereeniging and Mpumalanga, saving about 3,500 jobs. Now, AMSA, which has lost about 87% of its market value over the past 3 years, confirmed that the IDC facility is repayable and subject to certain conditions, including the financial performance and solvency of the long steel business. Now, as part of the agreement, AMSA has made undertakings to continue operating the business and retain jobs for the deferral period. And this is an additional measure. Last month, the government also committed to covering AMSA's wage bill over the next year with funding of nearly 417 million rand approved to sustain about 2,982 employees. Now, the bailout also coincides with a review of the country's steel tariff structure, which may lead to increased customs duties to protect the local industry.
In other company news, tell me about Nampak's CEO. Why is Phil Roux stepping down?
I think Phil Roux thinks he's done his job. He was really hired to turn around the business, and we are seeing some green shoots coming through. A change of guard at Nampak. Current CEO Phil Roux tendering his resignation effective 6 months from now, with his last day being the 30th of September. Andrew Hood, currently heading the group's diversified segment, has been appointed as his successor. Hood joined Nampak in 2023 and has been instrumental in overseeing the group's operations in the food industry, as well as the production of aerosol cans. Now, Roux joined Nampak in April 2023 with the task of spearheading a turnaround at the group, which was struggling under a massive debt pile of about 6 billion rands. During his tenure, Roux oversaw a strategic shift in the group's focus towards being a metals business operating out of South Africa. He also negotiated several deals to dispose of non-core assets, including its cottons business here at home, units in Zimbabwe and Zambia, as well as its Bevcan unit in Nigeria. Now, under Roux's leadership, Nampak's market value has increased to 3.5 billion rand on the JSE. Now, when he spoke to News 24 last year, Roux expressed confidence that the group had turned a corner, indicating a positive trajectory for the company's future.
All right, lastly, Ndauling, give us a sense of what kind of a trading day we can expect in the markets on this Tuesday.
So the JSE may be in for a rebound following international peers. Now, global factors are driving markets as local earnings season starts slowing down. In terms of economic data, we will be getting an update on how the local manufacturing sector is performing with the APSA PMI data out. Also, new vehicle sales are out this afternoon, so that'll be top of mind for investors. On the currency front, the rand losing steam at 18.35 to the dollar, this from about 18.25 around 6:30 a.m. Then over in Wall Street, futures are in the red. There's a sharp contrast from yesterday's positive close. This, however, affirming how volatile markets are as we near the trade tariff deadline. Shifting focus to Asia, the same issues around tariffs remaining top of mind for investors. Those stocks, however, rebounding this morning and on track to end the day mostly in the green.
All right, that's our Ndauling Lichela. She's always right on the money. She's kept you updated on all things business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours here on The Morning Brief.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
It's coming up to 21 minutes to 9. Let's shift our focus to this story. The Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC of KwaZulu-Natal, Reverend Thulasizwe Simelane, has welcomed a significant allocation of 227.7 million rand to municipalities in that province. The funding, announced by Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velenkosini Hlabisa, is aimed at assisting local municipalities in their recovery efforts following severe weather incidents between December 2024 and March of this year. Reverend Thulasizwe Simelane, the KZN Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC, joins me now to take the conversation forward. So this announcement, MEC, good morning to you, is part of the 1.4 billion rand disaster relief funds for flood-hit provinces that was announced by Minister Hlabisa. How useful will it be, and what use will you put it to in the province of KwaZulu-Natal? MEC? All right, let's try and get the MEC Thulasizwe Simelane back on the line. I believe we may have him back on the line. Apologies for that, MEC. So this announcement of 227.7 million rand forms part of this package of 1.4 billion rand that the Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa announced for disaster relief. What use will you put it to in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which has been hardest hit by these recent flooding incidents?
No, thank you very much to Thulasizwe and to the listeners of SAFM. Firstly, is to appreciate the bold leadership of the Minister of COGTA, Mr. Velenkosini Hlabisa, who answered the call of the distressed provinces like KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga, who were ravaged by disasters. And as KwaZulu-Natal municipalities, we appreciate the funds that have already been transferred to the municipalities, and they will be used to repair infrastructure that was damaged during the floods, like roads and bridges and critical water infrastructure.
So in terms of agency, MEC, the hands that will carry out this work using these funds, what's your thinking as a province? Because there's this sense of concern that there's the allocation at national level, 1.4 billion rand. There's the 227.7 million rand for the province of KwaZulu-Natal. But ultimately, the implementing agents end up being municipalities, and concern being expressed there that sometimes these funds are not used for what they were intended for.
Well, that is a valid concern, Thulasizwe. I have had a meeting with the mayors of all 30 municipalities that have received funding last week, Tuesday, and all plans are there to ensure that the monies will be used for their intended purpose. There will be very tight monitoring and supervision. And therefore, we do believe that the funds will be used correctly.
Specifically, what will this money be used for, MEC? I know that you started with answering that question, but is it going towards housing people who were displaced? My understanding is that not just housing, but you're dealing with some 10,000 people in KwaZulu-Natal that have been affected. Is that the correct figure? And will it go also to infrastructure repairs and the likes?
Well, in the main, it will go to infrastructure repairs, Thulasizwe, like roads, but also to preemptive maintenance, such as lightning conductors, because there are areas which are prone to lightning strikes. It will ensure that the drainage systems in municipalities like Alfred Duma and Ladysmith, the drainage systems are upgraded. So there will be quite a lot of uses to which these funds have been directed. But we can assure South Africans that the municipalities in KZN will use those funds for their intended purpose.
I don't suppose it will go a long way, these funds, that they will go a long way in assisting you with some of the social issues that we were talking about, you and I, some time ago, about where to house people displaced by disasters such as flooding, with some communities being a bit reluctant. Have you been able to crack that challenge that you faced?
Well, that is a holistic challenge which requires various sector departments like COGTA, Human Settlements, and the Minister of COGTA yesterday did announce that in May there would be a substantial allocation to KwaZulu-Natal to deal with the very crisis of housing and the resettlement of people who have been affected by the recent floods. So therefore, we want to use this period really to mitigate any future danger caused by the disasters, but also to plan ourselves accordingly as a province so that we prevent further loss of lives in any future disasters that may occur.
Yeah. And lastly, MEC, are you willing to be the person that we hold to account directly should these funds be, one, misappropriated, but two, should the solutions that are being brought in response to flooding disasters ultimately not be the kind of solutions you want to see? For example, should we hold you directly accountable if we have a repeat of situations such as the one where people were moved, having been hit by flooding, were moved to areas close to a canal, and we were then later told that that could not have been foreseen, that there would be further flooding in the area where they had been moved to?
Yeah, Thulasizwe, this requires, a mutual understanding and mutual cooperation. We were at Inanda with the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Honorable Mr. Thamsanqa Ntuli, 3 weeks ago, and people are living on a riverbank, and when they were about to be evacuated, they refused and physically, stood their ground not to be moved.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have a way to go in making our people aware that when we intervene for their own benefit, and they should cooperate when government moves closer to resettle them. So therefore, we do, it takes two to tango, and we need our people to form part of the solution. Because government alone cannot solve the problem.
I get that, MEC, but what I'm asking about is what is within your control. So a disaster has occurred. You now are responding and moving people who were affected by that disaster. That's within your control where you move them to. Moving them, for example, to an area that is prone to further flooding. I'm asking you if you are the person we should hold responsible if that happens again, because it has happened in the province in the past.
Well, Thulasizwe, I'm not a Sangoma, so I don't know what will happen in the future. But as I said before, is that the issue which we require and which we have a challenge with is land.
Yeah.
And if we can cooperate with all government agencies to secure the land, then definitely we will never have a repeat where people are put in a place where they're in danger's way.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time. Thank you. That's Reverend Thulasizwe Simelane. He's the KwaZulu-Natal Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Start out in Krugersdorp again this morning, not only misty, but also a vehicle on fire. This is the R28 part of Kraal. If you're going from Pinehaven down in towards sort of Robert Broom Junction, so heading towards Krugersdorp, that section of the R28 queuing up to get past that scene. Joburg's N12 and R24 routes coming in from Ekurhuleni stay heavy. There's a crash just around Galuli's interchange. Both routes backed up beyond their respective Edenvale exits. N1 south from Old Joburg Road, Samran territory, perhaps down to a point just before New Road stays busy. And the Mopani Mozambique Highway finally collision scene cleared and that traffic moving on. Durban, another busy day today with a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction in the much long-term roadwork. So coming from Umgena Road through to 4 level, it stays heavy on that run through. Pietermaritzburg, Camperdown, generally okay. Maybe a little bit of traffic just being held up approaching Umlas Road on your way through to Durban. And Cape Town, the crash on the N2 outbound involving a pedestrian in front of Langa. It's happened just before the N7 Jakes Kerwell Drive. Traffic still heavily parked back towards Jan Smuts. That will have an impact if you're on your way out towards the airport this morning. And roadworks on the N7 set to cause delays across the course of today again, queuing up between Frans Conradi and the Railway Bridge as you move through the busy Four-Tracker Road into a single-lane roadwork section. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Get unbeatable football odds with SuperSport Bet. From derbies to title deciders, our Super Boosts give you boosted odds you won't find anywhere else. Switch today and get a 100% deposit match up to 5,000 Rand. SuperSport Bet is licensed by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. Bookmaker license 10191097. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help 076 675 0710.
Algerian giants, the People's Club, plan to impress their home fans with victory before traveling to Mzansi, while the Buccaneers want to triumph away and complete the party in Orlando in the second leg. This is the first leg quarterfinal clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the incredible action of African football. MC Alger battles it out with Orlando Pirates on Tuesday, 1 April at 9 p.m. live on SABC 1, SABC radio stations and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
So quite a lot of you responding to the topics that we've put on the table this morning. The issue around the eThekwini rebranding exercise, as well as the refresh of their logo, but also what Vuyo Zungula of the ATM has put on the table. But before I move on, let me just quickly take a call from Matebe in Middleburg. Good morning to you, Matebe. You want to talk to me about AfriForum this morning, yeah?
Yeah, good morning. There is only 2 points. The first one, listening to the radio is depressing sometimes when we hear groups like AfriForum. Yes, concerning this, the minor child who was raped.
Yes.
Yes. And it's surprising also the Helen Suzman Foundation is so quiet about this matter. You can see which interest are they representing. And lastly, I want to talk about this Eskom thing. Eskom must say we are having enough power grid at the expense of the rural community members by violating their rights to be supplied with an electricity. They can't say we are having enough power grid. They must say we are having enough power grid at the expense of rural community members. That's all. They should put.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Just before you go, Matebe, when you say at the expense of rural communities, are you talking about those outages that we never really get to have them recorded as either load shedding or load reduction, just a general outage that occurs in many rural communities, right?
Yes, I mean, myself, I'm from under Dr. Jason Roca. We are experiencing the load reduction each and every 2 days. Then now Eskom will come and say we are having enough power grid. They don't tell the truth. They must tell the whole truth that at the expense of the rural areas community members.
Thank you for that, Matebe. Yeah, a lot of people have been making that point that a lot of communities continue, despite the fact that there's no load shedding officially, a lot of communities do continue to grapple with power outages. Sometimes not even explained in many parts of South Africa. Thabo in Joburg, good morning. You want to talk to me about corruption at the borders of this country?
Yes, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. So I don't know what's happening, but this thing has been happening. I've been doing this thing for quite a long time. I even wrote a letter to the minister outlining the details and what's happening at our borders. 2 years back, I even called state security. They came to me, state security, and told me not to say anything, but they're not doing anything. I've spoken to the highest level in Home Affairs, yet they are quiet. But what I've picked up, man, this thing is a syndicate, People are on a payroll. And South Africa, they don't get it. Our crimes inside the country are happening at the border. They come through the borders. Guns, weapons, human trafficking. That's the source of the corruption that is happening in South Africa. Ask yourself, where do they get ammunition for AK-47s? Where do they get AK-47s? Where do they get explosives for CIT?
Yeah, no. Thabo, can I suggest something? Would you mind sharing with us all of those details and just send it to us, even if it's on WhatsApp, so that we go through everything and then take up with the authorities that you're saying you've raised these issues with? Because clearly there's an issue there, and it's not the first time that you're calling us about this. Will you do that?
Yes, I'll do so, and I'll even name names if it is possible.
That's all good. That's all good with us. Please do share all of those with the number that you used to get a hold of us. That's Thabo there, not a first-time caller, calling again about the corruption at our country's borders and what he says appears to be a syndicate. One or two voice notes. Let me take this one on the issues around the rebranding and the logo in eThekwini.
Good morning, Bratulas, and to all SAFM listeners. Khona 2.8 million rands for a logo. Khona this man, he can't even explain why they must use 2.8 million for a logo. No let the residents of eThekwini rise up against this. This is just money laundering. TV from Middleburg.
What do you mean, man? I mean, you said 2.8 million rand is not just about the logo. It will also include community engagement and public participation in the processes around the logo. That's the explanation, but I see that you are not convinced at all by that explanation.
Good morning. Just listening to your previous interview with the communications guy. 2.8 million rand for a logo. If I were an investor, I'd certainly think twice about investing in a project where so much wasteful expenditure is spent on a logo. It's certainly not the right way, in my book, to gain any investors. This is Dion in Limpopo.
Yeah, Dion, a lot of people making that point that it's quite a bit of money to spend on the logo. But as I said, the municipality has explained its reasoning around the need for a strong brand supporting investment and tourism and the likes, and by extension revenue generation, and by extension supporting service delivery. So there you are. That's the story. That's their story for you to engage with. Magdalene in Mangaung, good morning. You want to talk to me about the interview we just had with the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC of KwaZulu-Natal?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and the listeners. Thank you. Yes. Point is, Thulasizwe, if you are going to question such question of keeping somebody accountable, trying to put somebody on a track of saying you are deployed for a certain position, in order for you to ensure that what you are deployed for, you must do it. So I'm definitely sure that I'm going to vote you wherever you are. Because this man tried by all means to make and dive. And you tried by all means to keep him to a point that you are deployed to ensure that the people are not going to experience what they experience previously under your nose. That's what you are trying to say. He's trying to run away. Amen.
Yeah, thank you. Magdalene, do you say you would vote for me wherever I go? How many family members, friends, and can you bring along? I might just run for office.
No, the point is that you are doing what we expected as South Africans. That we and you were supposed to do what you are doing.
Thank you for that. Magdalene and Mangaung there, just giving some feedback on that interview that we had with the MEC Thulasizwe Simelane out of KwaZulu-Natal. A few more of your voice notes. Let me take this one also on the rebranding and the logo in eThekwini.
Morning, Makuja. It's Andile in KZN. You see this marketing by City of eThekwini, it's going to amount to wasteful expenditure. Because, you know, you can say that you are investing in the marketing strategy while the city is actually failing to market itself in the way of providing good services so that it can be able to market itself. You see, this is illogical.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pai.
Yeah, brand equity, right? To what extent does the brand keep its promises? The promises of a brand like a municipality are that will ensure, to use the old phrase, a better life for all. Okay, don't jump up and down. I'm not quoting the ANC. I'm just saying that the brand promise is a better life for our residents. And that if you deliver on that brand promise, more than the logo, I promise you, the logo is just a cherry on top. As I've been saying, I don't know what the city of Joburg's logo looks like. What does it look like? I'm not saying that they're delivering on the promise, the brand promise. I'm just saying that I honestly don't know what the city of Joburg's logo looks like. But I would know if the potholes were being filled. I would know if the traffic lights suddenly were working, intersection after intersection after intersection. I would definitely know. And then I would maybe learn to know what the logo looks like a bit later on.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. What Mr. Zimula is saying is long overdue. In fact, they're supposed to regulate all the NGOs, because NGOs in this country are running this country without being voted into power. So I think what Mr. Zimula is doing is correct. In fact, he's got it. Is on point on this one. Samson Fasloras.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. It's an interesting point to make. There's a lot of work, of course, that NGOs do, that civil society does, that plugs the gap where there are governance failures. I take the point you are making about the scrutiny that you are saying is required in terms of their activities and their funding. I just want us to have that perspective as well, that says there's a lot more to this story than just one aspect, and engage with all aspects of the story. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point is up next with Kathy Motlatlana here on SAFM. That's coming up after the news.
In our top stories, no deal as yet between the ANC and DA on tabled budget, and SIU to probe Eastern Cape municipalities. Good morning. The ANC and the Democratic Alliance have once again failed to reach an agreement on the budget speech tabled by Minister Inoko Dongwana. Last night, DA and ANC negotiators met for a final round of negotiations ahead of the parliamentary sitting this week. The DA would accept the VAT increase of 0.5% and in return wanted the NHI, Bela and Expropriation Acts repealed. However, the ANC refused. In the second round of negotiations, the DA wanted to formulate the economic and international relations policies for the country with the ANC, but this was also rejected. Busi Bupela reports.
After last night's meeting, DA leader John Steenhuisen posted on social media platforms this morning that time is almost up. Last night, the ANC refused to finalize an agreement on growth and spending reforms, imperiling the GNU. The DA will oppose the budget unless and until a written agreement is reached. The DA was due to have a press briefing this morning in Cape Town, which has since been postponed until further notice. The ANC is scheduled to hold its own post-NEC briefing, which is expected to shed light on the status of negotiations.
Meanwhile, the ANC's chief, Mdumiseni Ntuli, says a creative solution needs to be found in order for Parliament to be able to pass the country's budget. Ntuli has called the DA's demands irrational as parties scramble to find consensus. He said that an agreement has been reached with most of the GNU partners.
All other issues that were raised by various political parties who disagreed with the budget through our own engagements which are continuing even today, have resulted in us agreeing that the only matter and the only question we need to find a creative solution to at the moment is only the VAT. All political parties except the Democratic Alliance, which has presented a long list of demands, which we've responded to, but they continue to insist that they will not be able to support the budget unless we adhere to their own demands, which we think is a misplaced approach and is not a rational approach to the discussion.
The chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Songezo Zibi, says there's a strong need to hold to account authorities in the OR Tambo District Municipality and Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape. Last week, the committee conducted oversight visits to a number of infrastructure-related projects. It flagged what it says is a culture of failing to implement consequence management. In the Buffalo City Metro, the committee visited the incomplete Mdantsane swimming pool where over 50 million rand had already been spent. Zibi says they are planning to table the matter before Parliament and have roped in the Special Investigation Unit to probe the municipalities.
We're going to have multiple interventions. The first is that there are going to be a couple of in-depth audits into very specific areas within these municipalities. Secondly, the SIU is going to apply either for an expanded proclamation or for a new proclamation in order to investigate certain areas. Thirdly, we believe very strongly that there needs to be lifestyle audits in several areas, especially infrastructure, project management, and so on, because there are also instances where people are clearly living way beyond their salaries and so on.
Lobby group AfriForum says it's not possible for the principal of Bergview College to have been involved in the rape of a 7-year-old girl that allegedly took place on school premises in October last year. This as the matter drew widespread condemnation over how it was handled. The school's principal has also sparked outrage for allegedly refusing to provide DNA samples for testing to rule him out as the perpetrator of the alleged crime. Barry Bateman is the spokesperson for AfriForum's private prosecution unit.
First off, Bergview College has 3 campuses. There is a junior phase, 1 to 3 grades. There is a senior junior phase, if you want to call it that, which is 4 to 7. And then there's the high school. And all 3 of these are on different campuses. Mr. Peterson is based at the main campus. The little girl who was raped is based at the grades 1 to 3 campus, and that's where she was picked up on the afternoon. So he was 2 kilometers away, not just at the afternoon when the child was picked up, but